Hey guys. This is part 3 of What If Naruto Was Raised and Trained by the Toads. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 10. Tenchi Bridge was one of the 3 vital pathways into the land of grass, and it had been built to last. The 3 bridges spanned the deep ravines that riddled the country's borders, providing entry for merchants and civilians. Ninja didn't need to bother with the bridges, as they could simply cross the ravines like they weren't even there, but to the less militant-minded the bridges were vital paths that connected the land to its 3 neighbors. The land of rain lay to the south, the land of fire to the east, and the land of earth in the northwest. Canopy Bridge had been destroyed during the last war, and the land of grass had been glad to be rid of any connection to the nation that had occupied them not so long ago. Hozukujo Bridge passed right past the infamous prison of the same name, and was rarely traveled, especially since travelers from the land of rain had been scarce in recent years. Tenchi Bridge, however, remained a well-traveled route, though it wasn't uncommon to find it empty. The land of grass had few reasons to visit in the first place. It was the lack of enemy ninja presence and presence of the bridge itself that convinced Sasori that Tenchi Bridge would be a good place to meet his spy. Kabuto Yakushi had been an accomplished spy for the Hidden Leaf when he had appeared in the Hidden Sand. His alibi and backstory had been watertight, which made Sasori suspicious. More digging had revealed that Kabuto, a loyal sand ninja, had actually been a loyal mist ninja not too long ago, and a loyal cloud ninja before that. It had pushed Sasori's spy network to the limits, but he had managed to track down Kabuto's origins to the Hidden Leaf. The pragmatic puppeteer wasn't one to let such talent in his field of expertise slip away, and had recruited the child into his massive spy network. Kabuto had been sent to infiltrate the Hidden Rock Village, and had been good about sending reports to Sasori and the Hidden Leaf. It wouldn't do to have the Leaf grow suspicious of their spy and have him erased for good. He had done well, and Sasori had almost forgotten him when it happened. The Leaf had ordered the boy eliminated anyway, and through some contrived circumstances, he had ended up in the employ of Orochimaru. It would appear that Sasori had not been the only person keeping an eye on the silver-haired spy. Never one to let an opportunity pass, Sasori had tasked Kabuto Yakushi with spying on Orochimaru himself. And now he hoped that placing a mole in the snake's den would come to fruition with a lead on the 3 tails. Orochimaru was known to have spent his years after, and even before, his defection from the Hidden Leaf partaking in horrid experiments to achieve perfection. As rare as they were, tailed beasts would be at least justify some looking into. These thoughts kept Sasori occupied as he readied his questions for his contact. He knew sneaking away from Orochimaru would be difficult, and had no wish to lose such a valuable spy, even if it meant arriving early and waiting. He sat inside his armored puppet Hiriko, senses trained outwards and mind focused inwards until a hooded and cloaked figure flickered into existence next to him. "I trust one didn't keep you waiting too long, Lord Sasori?" "No. I arrived early." "You're on time," grunted Sasori through Hiriko's armor. "I hate keeping others waiting, but I hate being kept waiting myself even more. So why don't you come out so we can start this already?" "Kukuku," laughed a pale man as he rose from the boards of the bridge. "I thought for sure I had hidden my presence. Oh well, if Akatsuki was made of weaklings, it wouldn't be worth the effort." He stepped out of the ground entirely, long black hair clashing with his ghostly pale skin. The purple eyeliner might have been seen as feminine if it didn't draw attention to his golden eyes, the pupil a slit. The long tongue that he licked his lips with completed the appearance of a snake that had found what it wanted. "Orochimaru," stated Sasori, as though he were interrupted by one of the most feared traitors in the world on a daily basis. "Did you follow my spy here, or did he sell me out? I want to know whether there will have to be blood before we're done here, and whose it will be." Kabuto swallowed, taking a step away from his former master towards the snake Sannin. "No need to get antsy, Sasori," said Orochimaru. "I was just a tad interested in this Akatsuki group. They seemed like strong people, so I thought I might use them to further my own goals. Imagine my surprise when my own trusted medic was a spy for them all along. I followed him of my own accord to meet with you directly. Akatsuki is not a tool to be used, Snake. You'd be the one more likely to end up dead if you crossed us," warned Sasori. "I have no intention of fighting you. I was just wondering why I wasn't included. I think I'd be a good addition to an organization hunting jinchuriki," said Orochimaru, examining his nails in feigned disinterest. "Akatsuki only has 10 members at any given time. And while some are full with idiots and fools, they are all full just the same. There is no room for you in Akatsuki, growled Sasori. Shame. I even tracked down my tailed beast too, said Orochimaru as he looked up from his right hand to gaze intently at Sasori with an infuriatingly cocky grin on his face. But if Akatsuki doesn't want to know where the Three Tails is, I suppose I could find use of it for myself. Perhaps it would make a tasty soup. As I said before, Akatsuki is not accepting new members. However, in exchange for the information on the tailed beast's whereabouts, Akatsuki will assist you in your goals, and you will be immediately inducted as a member should one of the current ones die, offered Sasori. Orochimaru's smile got wider, if such a thing were possible. I had hoped you would see things my way, Sasori. I'll give you back your spy. Kabuto will show you where we found the turtle. And I'll be waiting for that letter of acceptance with bated breath. Sasori would have to be deaf to miss the sarcasm and arrogance in his voice as Orochimaru's pale skin slowly turned brown and he collapsed into a puddle of mud. I'll have word with you about checking to be sure you aren't followed later, grunted Sasori. For now, take me to the tailed beast. Sasuke usually hated the rain. It was wet, good for farmers he supposed, but to him it was just one more hindrance in battle. But today he didn't mind. Today, it seemed appropriate that the universe share his feelings. He stood facing the memorial stone of fallen heroes of the Hidden Leaf, staring in mute horror and agony at the name freshly carved onto it. Sakura Haruno. It was only a name, but it was a name that meant so much more than just a name, in a place it shouldn't be. Part of him blamed Ino for not being a good enough medic, but the argument was mostly a hollow excuse to push away and wallow in his own guilt. If he had only been stronger, able to defeat Akatsuki and not be fooled by some juvenile trick like that, she might still be alive. If only his attacks had been as powerful as a sage's, he might have been able to do something. Lightning flashed in the background, and the resounding boom of thunder shook Sasuke to his bones. His eyes, previously shut with tears, shot open in a moment of realization. He hadn't been strong enough then, but he would become stronger. Stronger than Naruto, stronger than Itachi, stronger than all of Akatsuki combined, and he would do it with the fury and power of a bolt of lightning. The youngest living Uchiha ran off to find someone to teach him about summoning, more determined than he had been since his academy days, where he lived for Itachi's dying breath. From the trees around the memorial stone, One Eye watched on, glad that his adorable little student was taking the opportunity to better himself rather than give up in despair. He had been prepared to inspire Sasuke and motivate him to beat Akatsuki, but it seemed the young Uchiha had that bit covered by himself, and Kakashi had bothered to sneak out of the hospital when he shouldn't have even been awake just for this. He would have to talk to Sasuke about needing too much surveillance later. For now, he would focus on the burning pain coming from his broken bones. If I ever become a traveling hermit, I want you to kill me, complained Kisame. This whole traveling where the wind takes me crap makes it way harder to find someone that it should be. If you became difficult that to find, I wouldn't bother hunting you down, countered Itachi. Besides, we've found him now. Itachi gestured to the canyon they overlooked from their vantage point. They had been traveling the land of Earth for some time now, eager to prove themselves once more after their debacle with the Mizukage. They had managed to track Rashi, the jinchuriki of the Four Tails, across the countryside, always one step behind the wandering hermit. But now, looking down into the canyon, Kisame could see the small campfire giving off a warm light. It was the same fire that betrayed the jinchuriki's position, though Rashi probably had confidence that he could beat any simple bandits that found his campsite. Unfortunately for him, Akatsuki was no group of bandits that had stumbled across some traveler. They were competent warriors that could decimate entire armies single-handedly, coming in with full knowledge of their opponent's unique partner. Itachi took a step forward to move in on the campsite, but was stopped by Kisame's large arm on his shoulder. You take a nap or something, I got this. Kisame smiled at his partner's impassive face. It's my fault that Yagura ate it anyway, so I'll handle this guy by my lonesome. Yes, it was your fault. Despite Itachi's condemning tone, Kisame simply laughed. I'll see you when you're done for the ceiling. Sure thing. Kisame hefted Samahata over his shoulder and trekked into the valley to get his target. The land of Earth's hot climate had left the canyon destitute of any plant life bigger than a shrub, and the jinchuriki spotted Kisame from some distance. Apparently news of the Kazekage's death and Akatsuki hadn't reached his ears yet, and Rashi simply sat eating his dinner as Kisame drew near. So, Akatsuki has found me already, eh? Apparently word had reached him then. I hope you'll let a doomed man finish one last meal? It'd be a shame waste a perfectly good fish. Kisame didn't reply, but he did simply stand there for a minute as Rashi finished off the last bit of his dinner. So are we going to do this the easy way, or the hard way? Doomed man and last meal don't sound like the words of a man who'll fight for every breath. Asked Kisame, though he would eat his Akatsuki cloak if it were as simple as that. If it were my life on the line, I'd go quietly. I've lived longer than most people in this world have any right to, said Rashi quietly before looking up, his eyes showing his inner resolve. But I don't think you're collecting tailed beasts to store in a pretty showcase. I can't allow the lives of those important to me to be endangered, so I trust you understand why I'll fight with all I have. Yeah, no hard feelings, said Kisame before he leveled Samahata an inch from Rashi's nose. To the red-haired hermit's credit, he didn't move at all. Just hard blows. With that, Kisame lunged forward, Samahata almost going through Rashi's face. The old jinchuriki managed to jump out of range at the last second, running through hand seals as he flew backwards, lava style, exploding hell balls. Rashi stomped his foot on the ground, causing several circles of rock to rise to eye level. Kisame hated earth-style jutsu, because even if Samahata ate all the chakra behind the technique, you still had a large boulder hurtling towards you. The circles of earth bowed in the middle and launched at Kisame once they had collapsed in on themselves, leaving Kisame to stare down the balls of rock shooting towards him. Samahata cut through the first one, and while his sword couldn't talk, Kisame could sense it complaining about the hot lava inside the sphere. The next two hurtled past him on either side harmlessly, striking where he would be if he hadn't have dodged. Kisame knew that it couldn't be that easy, and his suspicion was confirmed when the spheres of lava-filled rock exploded next to his head, sending lava and rock shrapnel flying in every direction. Kisame winced in pain as the molten rock hit the sides of his face. The burns and cuts were quickly healed by Samahata, but there was nothing stopping them from hurting in the meantime. When Kisame opened his eyes, he saw a wave of lava bearing down on him. He tossed Samahata into the air and sprinted through the hand seals of his own technique. He finished, and didn't waste any time balancing his chakra for maximum chakra efficiency. Water style, exploding water shockwave. Thousands of gallons of water were vomited out of Kisame's mouth, and he was soon standing on top of a tidal wave of equal size to the molten death coming towards him. Kisame caught Samahata and balanced the deadly blade on his shoulder. The two waves collided with a hiss of steam. Kisame was trained to fight in the mist though, and that gave him a distinct advantage, or so he thought. Kisame ran at the jinchuriki, drawing back Samahata to drain his chakra. He went for the legs, and was shocked when Rashi jumped. The old man's foot became cloaked in a noxious red chakra before it shot out at Kisame's face. The shark managed to get a hand between the blow and his face, but he still went flying back. Kisame dug Samahata into the ground to slow himself down and landed on his feet. How were you able to sense me in the mist? I'm one of the best in the world at silent killing, asked Kisame. The Four Tails chakra had receded almost immediately, which made Kisame think that perhaps the old man couldn't use the chakra for more than a second. The earth is my ally, and you might have well been an earthquake heading towards me, answered Rashi. But I see you aren't an opponent I can hold back on, much. With that, Rashi was engulfed in a torrent of red. When the aura around him died down somewhat, Kisame noticed that he had one tail sprouting from his lower back. On top of that, his skin actually appeared to be made of lava. The two men ran towards each other, Kisame drawing back his sword and Rashi preparing a simple punch. A punch coated in lava, but still a punch. Once they reached each other, Kisame swung downwards in an overhead strike that Rashi easily dodged. Kisame used Samahata as a lever to lift himself up and over the punch that Rashi threw, though he was unprepared for Rashi's new tail to swing up and give him a smack in the face. The lava armor burned, and the impact from the tail launched Kisame backwards, Samahata barely staying in his hand. Rashi stepped forward, hopefully to gloat so Kisame could have time to heal his injuries. You don't stand a chance against a jinchuriki at one tail, and this isn't even my final form. You'll need to send someone more experienced to deal with me. Rashi rushed forward, but Kisame's burns had already healed. Expecting his opponent to be writhing on the ground in pain, Rashi was taken by surprise when Kisame leapt up and hit him in the stomach with Samahata. The shark sword was stopped by Rashi's lava armor, but Kisame quickly flipped the jinchuriki, using his beloved sword like a common bandit's club. Samahata still ate all of Rashi's spicy chakra though, and the jinchuriki landed without his cloak of lava, though relatively unharmed. That's one nasty sword. Let's see how much chakra it can absorb though. Rashi's chakra flared once again, the sheer force cracking the ground beneath him. Four Tails emerged this time, and Kisame readied his water prison shark dance, though he was still hoping to avoid using it. Flower Fruit Mountain! Rashi slammed his hands on the ground, and the ground beneath Kisame began to buckle upwards. The Akatsuki member's eyes widened as he felt the heat from the ground a moment before it broke. The area had temporarily been turned into a volcano, and the eruption sent massive quantities of lava shooting upwards. Kisame spat up a massive dome of water as Samahata fused to his body. A tail emerged from the tailless-tailed beast's back as his hands developed webbing. Fins grew from his arms and head, and his whole demeanor became more shark-like. The volcanic eruption below and the small ocean above cancelled each other out in a massive amount of steam. The two monsters didn't wait for it to clear up before they attacked though. Water style, aqua jet. Kisame shot a jet of concentrated water from his mouth as Rashi ran at him, covered entirely in his tailed beast's chakra. The hidden rock ninja rolled out of the way easily, a testament to his years of experience. Rashi finished his seals as he righted himself. Lava style, fire pledge. A plume of lava erupted from the ground in front of Rashi. Kisame was confused by such a useless attack, when another pillar of lava shot up from the ground, this time a little bit closer. Within seconds, the columns of fire had shot towards Kisame, swerving before they hit him to encircle him with the flames. Kisame felt the ground beneath him flare with chakra, indicating a finishing plume much more powerful than the ones meant to entrap him. It burned like hell, but Kisame leapt through the ring of fire that surrounded him. Samahata healed his wounds, or rather he did, since he and Samahata were one being at the moment. The sizzling stopped as the final burns were healed. Kisame looked up to see a lava-armored jinchuriki in his face, jaw open to unrealistic proportions and about to take a large bite out the Akatsuki member. Fire style, fire fan. Somehow Rashi managed to call out his attack even when his mouth was open wide enough to swallow Kisame's head. The shark man acted on instinct, and his thick tail smacked Rashi away. The lava armor left some bad burns on his tail, but Kisame ignored it. The burns would heal soon enough. Right now he had to get the momentum of the fight back on his side. While Rashi was still recovering from the blow, Kisame formed a quick seal and spat out a small volume of water. Rashi righted himself to land on his feet, though the speed of his travel had him skidding short distance. He looked at Kisame to see the man rushing him with Samahata back in his hands. The sword had seemed vital to Kisame's fighting strategy, which is why Rashi wasn't expecting Kisame to throw the sword at him like a large shuriken. The strategy was effective though, and Rashi was smacked across the face with the blade. Kisame rushed in immediately afterwards to press his advantage, delivering a solid blow to Rashi's face, which had been robbed of its protective and destructive chakra by Samahata's appetite. The blow sent Rashi flying back head over heels, but his decades of experience wouldn't been beaten that easily. His tails quickly righted him as the burning chakra covered his face once again. The rage of the four tails was telling him to rush recklessly, but he had been using the tailed beast's chakra for decades now and had gotten pretty good at suppressing his more primal instincts. Still, he would have to end this quickly before he became unable to use his demon's chakra. It gave him strength and stamina, but it also robbed him of a clear mind and slowly burned away his body. Kisame had decided to end it as well, and was running through the seals for one of his most powerful techniques, a jutsu he had actually developed to kill the Mizukage. It was only after developing the technique that he realized that Yagura would have brushed off a water-style attack like it wasn't even there. Rashi noticed that Kisame no longer had Samahata near him to heal his wounds and eat the chakra of his enemies. Realizing this was his best chance, he rushed at the Akatsuki member. Just as he started running, Kisame finished the seals for the technique. Now he only had to charge it. He brought his hands to his hips and started the final steps of the technique. Cupping his hands together, he channeled all his chakra to the space between his hands. To Yuertel, a small blue orb of flame vaporous, unaltered chakra formed between Kisame's hands as Rashi closed about half of the gap. Kisame ignored this to focus on the next part. He concentrated on converting the massive amount of chakra into water chakra. Nature transformation of this scale was difficult in the extreme, but the orb took on a deeper blue hue and felt more solid than it had a second ago. Destruction. Rashi had him. Kisame was unarmed a few feet away, and Rashi swung his arm to deliver a blow strong enough to decapitate the shark man before him. He was surprised when his hand passed harmlessly a few inches from Kisame's face. Looking backwards to check what had stopped him, he saw Kisame atop his sword, which had been driven through one of his tails. The blade was drawing his chakra out, and Rashi's other three tails shot out to impale the Kisame holding the sword. The appendages succeeded, but Kisame simply dissolved into water, grinning as they ran him through. Rashi's dulled mind felt happy that it had killed the Akatsuki member, But as Samahata continued to rob him of his demonic shield, his senses cleared. But not soon enough. Kisame finished his technique with the easiest of all the steps. He simply released the energy built up in a directed beam of death. Figuratively, of course, since Rashi dying would be very bad. Kisame thrust his hands out in front of him, palms facing his opponent like his signature super water shark bomb. Wea av vivi! The orb of condensed water chakra burst outwards at Rashi, hitting him point blank and engulfing him completely. After several seconds, the beam subsided to reveal that Rashi had been blasted several hundred meters. The jinchuriki had been driven into a wall of cooled magma, from his first attack of the battle, ironically enough, leaving a human-shaped imprint around the unconscious, or dead, jinchuriki. Kisame really hoped it was the former. The Akatsuki member took a step forward and almost collapsed from sheer exhaustion. The turtle destruction wave was a powerful technique, but it was slow and took almost all of his chakra. He managed to catch himself on Samahata's handle, and stolen chakra flooded into his system. It was no substitute for a good night's sleep, but it would keep him up and running for a while longer. He walked up to his Akatsuki cloak, which he had discarded sometime in the course of the heated battle to fuse with Samahata more easily. After donning the article of clothing that declared his allegiances like his headband used to, Kisame walked up to the bearded jinchuriki and poked him in the stomach with Samahata. The light touch was enough to dislodge the body from the rock, and Rashi fell onto Kisame's blade. He groaned as Kisame swung the sword up over his shoulder for easy transport of the body, reassuring Kisame of the jinchuriki's continued life. For a little bit longer anyway. This manner of carrying the body had the fortuitous side effect of constantly draining the man's chakra to keep him sedated. Kisame trekked back to the ridge where he had left Itachi, and wasn't surprised to see that the Uchiha had only moved to sit down on a large rock. Kisame decided to inform Itachi of the painfully obvious, just to annoy his stoic partner. Well, I got the old geezer, but he sure put up a fight. Kisame punctuated the sentence by tossing Rashi's body onto the ground in front of Itachi. Don't complain. You were the one who wanted to go alone. If we had gone together, he wouldn't have lasted a second, said Itachi, his black eyes betraying no emotion. Kisame's partner looked down at the body in front of him. Shouldn't you show a bit of respect to the elderly? Ha! Don't let his age fool you. This old guy isn't one to be taken lightly. I almost had to use 1/10 of my full power against him. His bragging managed to get a light groan out of Itachi. It wasn't much, but Kisame would take what he could get from a former ANBU captain. Let's get a move on. We have a jinchuriki to seal, then we take out my target. Luckily the Five Tails is also located in the land of Earth, so we won't have far to go, said Itachi as Kisame lifted Rashi once more with Samahata. The duo walked off, sending a message that they had procured one of the targets. Sasori and Zetsu were rather annoyed. Orochimaru's tip had proven accurate, but the location that it had led them was rather frustrating. So, began Zetsu, beating around the bush, I don't suppose, do you have any puppets that can swim? No. And I'm guessing your underground transportation won't assist in getting the Three Tails out of the lake either, grumbled Sasori, who was grumbling even inside Hiriko. No, responded Zetsu. I may have something that could help, but I'm still ironing out the details. The Akatsuki team stopped arguing and stood intently listening to something in perfect unison. A second or two passed, and they both relaxed once more. Ponder it all you like over the next 3 days, replied Sasori as he emerged from his puppet shell. He pulled out a scroll and began to tinker with one of his newer puppets, installing the hidden weapons. We have some time to burn apparently. Who do you think it was? Asked Zetsu, though in typical fashion, he answered his own question. It doesn't matter who got which jinchuriki. We got one, that's all that matters. Just be ready to capture the Three Tails after the sealing, interjected Sasori. After listening to Zetsu argue with himself for hours when they had first been paired together, Sasori had learned quickly to stop the 2-1 if he didn't want his time being wasted. And he never wanted his time to be wasted. Sasori pulled a scroll out of his cloak and opened it to remove one of his backup organs. Here, Zetsu reached over and grabbed the juicy spleen and began to eat as Sasori worked on his puppet, the two passing the time until the sealing began. Damn it, Kakuzu! Why you old fuckers so slow all the time? We should already be done with this shitty take them alive business, but no, you just have to stop and kill anyone with a bounty on their head big enough to buy a bowl of ramen. Now someone else got another jinchuriki, and we're still trekking to the hidden cloud, complained Haiden. Haiden, shut up or I'll kill you, said Kakuzu, not bothering to hide his annoyance. Ha! If you could kill me, I'd welcome it. Besides, you're just pissed because you know I'm right," said Haydn. "Say, who do you think it is this time? I do not care. Shame, I recently came across a hefty sum of cash off of a gambler's corpse. I was hoping to gamble it away on bets and the like to keep the spirit alive, but I guess no one wants to take a gamble around here. Even if it means winning large amounts of cash," said Haydn, drawing out the last word for emphasis. "I'd wager it was Kisame and Itachi. Now how much money are we talking about?" answered Kakuzu. "Ha, I knew you'd come around. For a very large amount of dough, my guess is Sasori and Zetsu. He'd hate to be the last one to catch his target, since it would mean making others wait," laughed Haydn. "I don't want money though. If I win, I get to mutilate the next bounty we find, beyond recognition. It's been too long since my last complete tribute, and my life depends on Lord Jashin's favor. You're insane to think anything could be more powerful than money, but I'll accept those terms. Now let's find somewhere out of the way to be during the sealing," retorted Kakuzu as he and Haydn made their way towards the land of lightning. Haydn's target was the two tails, and Kakuzu would pray to Jashin before his team was the last to collect their tailed beast. Ino was inconsolable after Sakura's death. She spent most of her time crying in her room or visiting Kakashi at the hospital. The Jonin's ribs had been shattered and his internal organs had practically been liquefied. It was only because of Tsunade's unparalleled medical skill that his ninja career had survived. She had been so furious at him for sneaking out of the hospital early, the Hokage had almost forgotten the loss of her apprentice temporarily. But Sakura's death was inescapable. Ino had gotten better though. The pain was still there, but it wasn't as raw as it had been. The blonde Yamanaka had decided that morning to check up on her other teammate, and console Sasuke as best she could. This was more difficult than she had thought, since Sasuke had apparently not just been sitting at home like she had. Kakashi had only seen the Uchiha when he had barged in and more or less interrogated Kakashi on all he knew about summoning. Kakashi had referred him to the retired third Hokage, and Sasuke hadn't been seen since. The third Hokage had been about as much help as Kakashi had on Ino's search. Sasuke had approached the elderly god of ninja several days ago and asked once more about summoning. The old man had summoned a small monkey for the last loyal Uchiha, as he did then for Ino. The critter was absolutely adorable, but Sasuke hadn't been looking for a cute pet. He was referred to Tsunade, as she was the summoner of the slugs, a near indestructible, acid-spewing, absolutely massive summon. Tsunade had seen the Uchiha the same day as her predecessor. He had told her that he was doing summon research to avenge Sakura, and she had told him everything he wanted to know, and then some. The slugs were strong, but they were mostly healers. At this rate, Sasuke had apparently despaired of inheriting a summoning contract that fit him perfectly. When Sasuke asked how Tsunade had procured her summoning contract, he was disappointed to learn that the slug summoning contract was a Senju clan heirloom. As the only living Senju, Tsunade had inherited it from her ancestors. Ino had then traced Sasuke to Jiraiya of the Sannin. Tsunade had mentioned that she had no idea how her orphan teammate had procured his summoning contract. When Ino found the pervert, peeping at the hot springs no less, he had treated her to a story about how he found his summoning contract in return for her silence on the matter. Sasuke had apparently gotten the same deal earlier today, and had upheld his end of the bargain. She had still punted him over the barrier into hot water, both literally and figuratively. Still, the story had been interesting, not that she planned to summon herself to the lair of some deadly summoned creature, but she knew someone who might just be that desperate. She headed to her team's training ground, where she saw Sasuke practicing some jutsu or another. She couldn't name it, but something held her back from making her presence known. Perhaps it was Sasuke's look of sheer concentration, or maybe the fact that she had some idea as to what he was up to. Sasuke finished the short series of seals and slammed his palms on the ground. Even from across the training ground, Ino heard the name of the technique he had just used. Reverse summoning technique. Ino finally gained the courage to approach her teammate, but by then he had disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Sasuke opened his eyes, Sharingan spinning. He remembered Jiraiya's warning, and as despicable he was as a human being, he was a damn good ninja. Just because Jiraiya had befriended his summons within minutes of arriving, Sasuke may have entered the lair of some deadly beast that wanted no relations with him past dinner. Several seconds passed, and Sasuke allowed himself to sheath his sword and take in his surroundings. He found himself with very little to look at beyond the sky. On an impulse, he looked down, and his eyes widened in wonder. He was at the peak of a large mountain that rose above the clouds. Mountain was generous though. The rock he was standing on was better described as a spire, jutting up from the earth to awe-inspiring heights. Looking around, Sasuke saw smaller spires shooting up out of the cloud cover several hundred feet below him. A loud cawing noise drew his attention upwards once more. Sasuke wondered briefly what could possibly be higher than him, and his question was answered a second later. A large hawk swept down at him, striking out with razor-sharp talons. Sasuke managed to block the strike with his sword, but the impact still drove him off the edge of the rocky pinnacle. Deciding to cut his losses, Sasuke let the hawk carry his sword off as he landed vertically on the rock face. His Sharingan noticed the otherwise invisible blades of wind coming to chop him into mincemeat. There were many blades arrayed in seemingly no order at all, which would have made them impossible to dodge, unless one had all-seeing eyes. Sasuke weaved and dodged around the rocky peak, avoiding every blade of wind that left deep gouges in the rock. He looked up to see the hawk from earlier beat its wings once more with a loud cry. He dodged all of these ones too, but they distracted him from the hawk moving upwards. The bird fell into a steep dive at Sasuke. The Uchiha's Sharingan was all that allowed him to track the fast movement. He managed to jump off of the rock face in time to dodge the speeding predator. He locked eyes with the winged beast as it passed him, and time seemed to stop as he gazed into the golden eyes of the brown bird. Deciding that slicing off one of the hawk's wings wouldn't earn its respect as, Sasuke settled for a simple genjutsu. Simple for the Sharingan anyway. It was likely no normal genjutsu user would achieve a genjutsu of this level in their lifetime. The bird's eyes had 3 dots come into being, making it closely resemble a golden version of the Sharingan as it swooped around to catch Sasuke on its back. The bird then flew off to carry Sasuke off to the tallest of the spires, which was amazingly carved into a tower at the highest levels. The bird landed on the top, which was a large nest. Sasuke wondered why the bird flew him here when it flew away. The bird had the decency to leave behind his sword, which he appreciated. Sasuke had no idea what he should do when a large mound on the other side of the nest moved. The mound revealed itself to be an enormous hawk which simply gazed at Sasuke for a short time. The Uchiha was really hoping the bird didn't attack him, since he was still winded from his previous fight at such a high altitude. Luckily, the hawk made the first move, and it wasn't one to eat him. I can't remember the last time the hawks had a visitor that was anything more than a tasty snack. "Why have you come here?" asked the bird. Sasuke was taken aback, both because the hawk had talked, and because it sounded distinctly female. He had known summons could talk, but the previous hawk's simply screeches had led him to believe the hawks were less intelligent than other summons like the toads or slugs. Sasuke started when he realized that the large female hawk was waiting for his response, and looking hungrier every second she was kept waiting. "I need a summon capable of matching the level of the opponents I face. A summon that can teach me about Sage Mode," answered Sasuke. The hawk's eyes narrowed. Sage Mode is one of the most guarded secrets of the summons. Only a few know of its existence, even fewer know how to use it. Besides, you would have to be the summoner of whatever creature decided to teach you. "So do you know how to use Sage Mode?" "I'll agree to be your summoner if you're willing to teach me," responded Sasuke, allowing a tinge of hope to seep into his voice. "You are in no position to be taught anything except what the inside of a raptor looks like," shrieked the large bird of prey. Their high-pitched calls did not lend themselves well to low tones and shouting. Sasuke placed his hand on his sword, ready to retreat at a moment's notice. Luckily, the female hawk calmed down rather quickly as seemingly became lost in thought. "Still, Takemaru attests to the sharpness of your eyes. Out of respect for your prowess, I'll offer you a deal." "What kind of deal?" asked Sasuke warily, though he took a step away from the edge of the nest towards the hawk. "If you agree to be our summoner or not, we will let you go. If you become our summoner though, we will teach you Sage Mode if we know it. You run the risk of simply getting one of the hundreds of summons that know nothing about the workings of Sage Mode, but you will not sign another contract until death. That is the deal." "Do we have an agreement?" asked the hawk. She reached into the tangled mess of twigs and feathers and withdrew a scroll with her beak. It was tiny compared to her, but was probably a meter across and who knew how long. Sasuke looked down at the scroll, and raised his hand to his mouth. He bit down hard, and blood ran freely from his thumb. "Where do I sign?" Chapter 11. Goddamnit a hit. "How do you know this kind of shit?" Language, Haiden. Kakuzu wasn't usually one for jokes, but the big payday in his immediate future was enough to lift even his spirits. Sasori and Zetsu still had to find their target. It wasn't you and me, and I doubt even Naruto and Deidara are ambitious enough to go for two-tailed beasts in a row. or at least not skilled enough to succeed in the attempt. That left Itachi and Kisame as the logical choice. I'll take my large sum of cash after the sealing. You guys made another bet? I'm almost afraid to guess who Hayden picked, mumbled Naruto. I put my faith in you two pansies, and you let me down. Do you know how much I owe Kakuzu now? A large sum of cash. That's a large sum, shouted the silver-haired immortal, though his pink eyes were the only discernible feature through the projection technique. Hayden's loud ranting was almost enough to drown out the pained groans of the dying man in front of them, but Rashi's pain had practically become background noise at this point. A large sum of cash? Asked Deidara. One could almost see the eyebrow being raised. Did you even bother to count this large sum of money? Yeah, of course I did. It was just more than I could count, though. Hayden trailed off before defending his monetary prowess as loudly as he could. It was more than 20, though. I ran out of fingers and toes. Wow, that is a lot, replied Zetsu earnestly. You're both morons. Say, how would you deal with an opponent hiding in the bottom of a lake? Zetsu's white side decided to change the topic towards something hopefully beneficial. You found the three tails? Any snarky responses were stopped dead in their tracks by the voice of Pain. Why yes, but the dumb turtle is at the bottom of a lake, we can't reach it, stammered Zetsu. Overwatering is a nasty way to go. Poison won't work on the beast, and my selection of submersible puppets is limited, added Sasori. I see, said Pain, shocking the other 8 members of Akatsuki. Conan never seemed surprised by Pain and the others were generally unflappable, but Akatsuki's leader had only ever responded to failure with annoyance or anger. Zetsu. Use that technique to remove the obstruction to Akatsuki's goals. Are you sure? A look from the ringed eyes of God answered his question. Understood. What technique are you talking about? Are you keeping secrets from me? From me? The others ignored Zetsu, who continued to argue with himself for the rest of the ceiling. Rashi collapsed to the floor, and Akatsuki dismissed themselves after making sure that their leader had nothing more to say. Sasori opened his eyes for the first time in 3 days, or rather Hiriko did, since Sasori had been unable to move the puppet armor while sealing the tailed beast. So what is this technique that will help us capture the 3 tails? I'd like to know that too. Zetsu's upper body emerged from a tree, and while his white side seemed genuinely irked, his black half didn't seem to care. You'll see. Zetsu split down the middle into 2 different beings, each a different color. Sasori had never seen Zetsu do this, but he had stopped being surprised by his partner years ago. Black Zetsu walked to the ledge overlooking the lake and clasped his hand together as if in prayer. His legs transformed into the roots of a tree and dug into the ground. Given Zetsu's plant-like appearance, Sasori wasn't surprised at all. White Zetsu simply glared at his other half and tapped his foot impatiently. Wood style, deep forest emergence. Sasori was surprised by the technique's name, but he was rendered speechless as enormous trees emerged from the depths of the lake carrying a large turtle tied up half out of the water. Sasori recovered quickly and resolved to discover why his partner had the first Hokage's jutsu later. For now he settled for unveiling his favorite puppet to demonstrate that finesse and skill could beat any amount of brute force. Kakuzu, are we there yet? Whined Hayden as the 2 trekked through the mountain peaks of the land of lightning. No. Kakuzu's reply was short and economical, answering the question perfectly, and leaving no room for a follow-up. Kakuzu, are we there yet? Apparently Hayden was too idiotic to realize that Kakuzu had already answered his question. Either that or he didn't care, which was more likely. No. Now would you kindly shut up for the remainder of our trip? I'd prefer to gather thoughts before facing a demon in her own home. Snapped Kakuzu after being forced to answer the same moronic question for the 500th time. He was still furious at Hayden for the 30 Ryo payday he had gotten from their little wager. Kakuzu supposed he should be grateful to have money of any value, but his hopes had been raised by his partner. It was a mistake he wouldn't repeat in the future. Oh, so the jinchuriki's a girl, huh? Said Hayden, taking Kakuzu's extra comments and running with them. Been a while since I killed a bitch. Like what? 2 weeks? 3? 18 days. And we aren't killing the jinchuriki. Unless you want to face leader's wrath by yourself, replied Kakuzu, resigning himself to petty conversation with an idiot. I wouldn't be alone, objected Hayden. You're my partner, right? You wouldn't heartlessly stand by while I was being attacked, would you? Hayden leaned into Kakuzu's shoulder wearing a wide grin. You're right, I wouldn't stand by. Hayden stood up and looked at Kakuzu strangely. He joked around, but he had though Kakuzu didn't care at all. The fact that he would stand up for Haydn really surprised the Jashinist. I'd be as stupid as you if I didn't join leader. Glad for his immortality, Haydn broke into laughter. There's the Kakuzu I know. I thought you were getting soft for a second there. Wiping a tear from his eye, Haydn decided for the annoying coup de grace. Anyway, Kakuzu, are we there yet? Yes, you idiot. Kakuzu's outburst was accompanied by explosive action. He turned around, grabbed Haydn's head, and threw him through the doors of a large building Haydn hadn't noticed in one fluid motion. Kakuzu calmly walked through the debris like nothing had happened as Haydn got up and dusted himself off. Man, you can be a real ass sometimes, you know that? Grumbled Haydn. Where is this bitch we have to capture anyway? Kakuzu wordlessly grabbed Haydn's head and turned his gaze towards a blonde woman standing in the room they had entered rather forcibly. She looked back at the two Akatsuki immortals before turning to sprint down one of the long hallways of the building. Well, there goes any hope of an easy capture. Let's go, ordered Kakuzu as he took off after the blonde, Haydn right on his tail. The two chased the girl down the long hallway, which led them further downwards into another tunnel, this one with several inches of water. The fuck? Kakuzu, what the hell is this place? Yelled Haydn, getting a nasty feeling in his gut about their location already. I believe we're going down a sewer maintenance line, informed Kakuzu calmly. God damn it! Shouted Haydn. Let's just end this shit quickly. Haydn threw his triple-bladed scythe at the hidden cloud jinchuriki still fleeing from them. The red weapon flew far further and straighter than it had any right to, and the blonde Jonin was only able to dodge it once they entered a larger tunnel that seemed to be where the rest of the sewer tunnels connected. Even with the extra maneuvering room, she barely managed to evade the deadly weapon. You missed, informed Kakuzu. And you call yourself a member of Akatsuki? Shut the fuck up, Kakuzu! Shouted Haydn. A flick of his wrist yanked the scythe back into his hand by the thick cable attached to the weapon's bottom. Haydn looked away from his partner to address the girl they had been pursuing, who had inexplicably stopped to face them. Good job getting out of the way of my attack, but I am the slowest member of Akatsuki. I just can't hit anything, can I? Hey, Haydn. She's the two-tails jinchuriki, said Kakuzu, turning to his partner. You'll die if you get careless and tell her all your weaknesses like that. Don't give me that shit, Kakuzu, said Haydn. He turned to face the target, though he continued to address Kakuzu. If she could kill me, I'd welcome it. So you are Akatsuki? I knew something was up when I got this mission. The hidden cloud would never risk one of their jinchuriki like this. But now that I know you're Akatsuki, I can't let you leave here alive. One hand seal later, and all the explosive notes that had been hidden in the entry arches to the main sewer line exploded, sealing the entrances and exits with walls of rubble. I'll kill you here and now. Oh, well, that happened, said Haydn. I'd suggest another course of action, though. When people get all enthusiastic about fighting and killing, I get all excited about fighting and killing. I go like screw the objective. I just want to kill everything. It's an awesome feeling, but we have to take you alive and all, so maybe we could just talk this over? Talk this over? Asked the jinchuriki incredulously. Yeah. This whole not killing thing goes against my religion entirely. I may not look it, but I'm a very devout man. And if there's one thing Jashinism is all about, it's killing. Leaving you alive after fighting you would just be wrong. Maybe you could just come quietly? Asked Haydn. Are you stupid? Asked both the target and Kakuzu at the same time. The hidden cloud ninja was the only one to continue from there though. In the name of Yujito Ni of the hidden cloud, I will kill you. The water at her feet, which had previously been calmly rippling, began to shoot up violently from the sheer force of her chakra. Kakuzu took the time to ready himself, while Haydn was standing completely silent with his necklace raised to his forehead in prayer to Jashin. Yujito's hair tie snapped, allowing her blonde hair to stand on end as if she were standing on a large fan. Blue, flame-like chakra erupted from her body. It took the form of a two-tailed cat made entirely of blue flames, giving the demon a wraith-like appearance. Its eyes, one green and one yellow, gazed down at the Akatsuki members and now dwarfed. Hey Kakuzu, said Haydn, finishing up his prayer. It looks like she's more of a pussy than a bitch. Haydn's quip was punctuated by a large paw made entirely of chakra smashing him into the concrete floor. The cat's maw opened wide and shot an enormous fireball at Kakuzu point blank. Kakuzu hardened his skin with a single hand seal to survive the blast, but the building the sewer line was housed under didn't, and exploded violently. Finesse and skill were all well and good, but the brute force of a tailed beast was a tad more massive than any mere ninja, a fact that Sasori was learning the hard way. Zetsu's unexplained wood style had turned the lake into a forest and pulled the three tails from the depths, but it had apparently drained a good deal of his chakra, and Black Zetsu was resting on the shore of the tree-infested lake. White Zetsu had grown an army of clones to assist in the fight, drawing their sustenance from the chakra of the three tails itself, and they were all busy absorbing as much chakra as they could. The downside was that the White Zetsu clones were designed to siphon chakra from ninja for the purpose of impersonation. Their purpose was subterfuge, not all-out combat against demons, which left the task up to Sasori and his puppets. Hiriko's poisoned weapons would be little good against the armored turtle, as would his red army. That left him three options: his two favorite puppets or himself. Using himself was out of the question, and he preferred to use only one of his puppets at a time when going for brute force so he would be better able to control them. Many fingers make for good control of weaponized corpses, as the saying goes. And Sasori had to say, the third Kazekage's famed Iron Sand was holding its own against the tailed beast. Iron Sand, 6-inch nail. The black grains came together into three large spikes that launched themselves at the three tails. Sasori had no idea why half of the Kazekage's techniques were called what they were, but the stupid names had worked for the Kazekage, so they would work for him, even if the spikes were clearly longer than 6 inches and shaped nothing like nails. Perhaps he would change that one. Two of the spikes dug into the relatively unarmored undersides of the beast's tails, and the other one broke uselessly on the closed shell that guarded the turtle's vulnerable eye. The shell opened up to reveal the one-eyed face of the three tails, which opened its mouth to roar a challenge at the pests that had dared to pull it out of the lake it had made to rest in and then attack it. The roar ended with a large ball of water being shot at Sasori, who was perched on one of the large tree branches that now coated the lake. The water bullet tore up those branches as it hurtled towards Sasori. Iron Sand, Black Mountain Range. The defensive jutsu in question was simply a big block of iron sand meant to stop attacks, and looked nothing like a mountain range at all. Despite the idiotic name bestowed upon it by the greatest Kazekage in history, the jutsu still did its job and stopped the water bullet dead in its tracks. The water likely washed off all of Sasori's poison, which annoyed the puppeteer, but not nearly as much as if one of his puppets had been destroyed by the attack. Sasori allowed himself a smirk as his plan entered its next phase. Iron Sand, World Method. What did that even mean? No wonder Sasori never could stand the third Kazekage. Regardless of the moronic name that graced it, the World Method caused the two spikes of iron sand embedded in the tails of the tailed beast to explode outwards from the middle, where they intersected the inside of the turtle's shell. The three tails roared in pain as its tails were utterly decimated by the sand running along their lengths. The third tail shot at Sasori, who was forced to move from his place on the tree's branches. The turtle seemed to have some intelligence in its one visible eye as it shot another water bullet the size of a cathedral at Sasori midair. Sasori didn't feel like wasting chakra on another black mountain range, and settled on avoiding the attack by pulling himself downwards by the chakra strings connected to the third Kazekage below. He was a tad too slow, however, and the bottom edge of the jutsu blew his head clean off his shoulders and sent it flying. Most ninja would be dead, but Sasori was member of Akatsuki. As such, he was decidedly not normal. A chakra string emerged from his headless body and connected to the red-haired head. The head came flying back to him, and snapped right back into place, if backwards. Sasori's head spun right around so the three tails could see just how irritated he was. The puppeteer's brown eyes narrowed as the third Kazekage's iron sand rained down from above in fist-sized balls. Iron sand, drizzle! That did it. Sasori was going to rename every last one of these stupid jutsu. The drizzle technique did little more than annoy the three tails, since the beast managed to close the armor over its face in time. Sasori scowled as the armor opened back up to reveal a completely undamaged eye. The three tails roared loudly, the sheer power behind the sound tearing up some of the closer branches. The giant turtle raised its head up and opened its mouth wide. Sasori's eyes widened at the sight of the demonic chakra so dark red it was almost black gathering in front of the monster's mouth. It congealed into the infamous tailed beast ball and was quickly flying at Sasori. The famed puppeteer knew he couldn't stop an attack of that power, and decided instead to deflect the ball of concentrated death. Iron sand, whirling shield. Sasori allowed himself a small smile as the black dust gathered into a hollow cone facing him and began spinning. The previous name of the technique had been Desert Whirlpool, which made no sense to Sasori, as whirlpools weren't found in the desert under any circumstances. The tailed beast ball, a perfectly sensible name for a ball of chakra produced by a tailed beast, was exactly as large as the diameter of the hollow cone and began to slow as it ground through the spinning sand. Just as Sasori sensed the spinning iron about to give way, he willingly collapsed the right side of the cone. The change in resistance sent the attack flying off to the right of Sasori, and it missed by a mile. Sasori was glad it did too, seeing as it destroyed the section of shore it hit, dug a deep trench as it continued into the surrounding forest, then exploded violently. Sasori's puppets would have been decimated, and in fact, some of the iron sand had been vaporized, rendering it unusable. The dust that used to be sand fell away from the edges of the cone as the shape inverted, point facing the three tails. The beast had apparently counted Sasori as dead the moment the tailed beast's ball had been launched, and was busy swiping Zetsu clones off of its shell with the one good tail it had left. Sasori decided to correct that mistake. No one, man, ninja, or even tailed beast disregarded Sasori of the red sand like that. Iron sand, drill shot! The inverted whirling shield shot at Three Tails' unsuspecting face. The chakra in the iron sand must have sparked some recognition with the Three Tails, and it turned to face the burst of chakra. The burst of chakra turned out to be a massive drill made of poison iron dust that bore into the beast's one good eye. This understandably caused excruciating pain. Spread from both the tails and now the face, Sasori's poison began to kick in. Sasori would be surprised if it proved fatal to a tailed beast, but the powerful toxin coupled with the hundreds of white Zetsu clones draining chakra from the monster during the entire fight, and the Three Tails just couldn't stay up anymore. The giant turtle collapsed in an armored heap onto the tree branches, and actually tore through them into the lake where it floated like a discarded twig. The white Zetsu clones that had avoided being crushed detached from the Three Tails' hide and leapt up onto the tree branches. The ones that had died were tossed into the lake by the surviving clones, and they quickly dissolved into a white mush. Sasori sealed his Kazekage puppet into its special scroll as Zetsu's two halves emerged from the wood beside him. "You never told me you could use the wood style," said Sasori as he unsealed his puppet armor Hiriko and entered it. When he next spoke, his voice had been artificially deepened. "It seems rather handy to be able to convert any battlefield to your advantage. Earth-style jutsu are one thing, but the first Hokage's jutsu is on an entirely different level. Yeah, you never said you could do that." "Man, was I surprised," said a white Zetsu, presumably the original, as he and his other half fused back together. "Why? You make your clones with the wood style. And you've known I could use it offensively for years." "Oh yeah. I forgot." Sasori rolled his eyes, secure in the knowledge that the action would not be translated through Hiriko. "Let's just get this tailed beast to the hideout. I'd hate to keep it waiting." "Haiden, get up. You're not fooling anyone," said Kakuzu calmly after the fire subsided. "Oh come on, Kakuzu," complained Haiden, pushing the giant cat paw off of himself. "I'd like to think I had the kitty confused. Water style, contained shockwave. A wonderful name if Kakuzu dared blow his own horn." A white mask with light blue markings on its cheeks emerged next to Kakuzu's head from under his Akatsuki cloak. The bird mask opened its beak and released a massive wave of water at the flaming cat. The Two Tails retaliated with a large fireball of its own, but the contained damage had the elemental advantage and blasted the cat off of Haiden with a loud hiss. It also blasted Haiden, but Kakuzu didn't really care. "Kakuzu, the fuck? You hit me with that too!" shouted Haiden, who apparently did care. "Like that even hurt you?" "Looks like it did hurt our opponent though." Sure enough, the Two Tails had swirls of steam rising off of its flame-like body. It hissed at the two and leapt at them once more. Haiden jumped in front of the SWAT, blocking it with the blades of his scythe. As one would expect when trying to stand up to a 20-foot-tall demon with a spiky metal pole, Haiden was pinned to the ground, only his head sticking out from under the paw. The three blades did their job though, and bit deeply into the cat's paw, causing it to hiss in pain. The Two Tails turned its hiss into a snarl, and loosed a stream of flames onto Haiden's head. By the time the flames lit up, even the rock surrounding Haiden was red hot. Satisfied with the charred corpse it had certainly created, the cat leapt forward at Kakuzu. The bounty hunter hardened his arm and delivered a powerful punch right onto the wound Haiden had created earlier. A jet of water from inside the sleeve of his cloak helped in making the beast recoil in pain. Kakuzu looked past the cat to see Haiden stabbing himself, and twirling his feet around like the idiot he was. It would appear that he had gotten enough blood to start the longest ritual known to man. Once it was complete though, Kakuzu knew all he had to do was stop Haiden from going too far and killing the jinchuriki. One drop of blood and it was all over. Kakuzu focused on the Two Tails, which had wisely put some distance between herself and Kakuzu. The mangy beast raised its maw to the heavens and began charging chakra for its strongest attack. Kakuzu glared at the cat, but otherwise didn't move as it finished charging the tiled beast ball. It was one of the strongest attacks in the world, but Kakuzu's nemesis had survived it, reportedly countless times, and Kakuzu would not lose to a man long dead. Besides, Haiden appeared to have finished up. The two tails brought its face forward to launch the tailed beast ball at Kakuzu when its right front leg collapsed. The sudden loss of balance threw off the beast's aim, and the tailed beast ball went flying past Kakuzu close enough to move his Akatsuki cloak. It took a large circular chunk out of the mountain behind him and continued on a while before exploding harmlessly in midair. Kakuzu spared Haiden a glance, only to see him laughing maniacally with a black spike impaling his right arm. Under his mask, Kakuzu smiled. It seemed that this fight wouldn't be lasting much longer. The two tails fell to the ground helplessly, and shrieked in pain as Haiden ripped the spike out of his right arm and violently stabbed it into his left arm. Kakuzu decided to speed up the progress and sent another wave of water at the fire cat. When the torrent abated, Kakuzu looked on at the blonde jinchuriki from earlier, the only difference being the fact that she was soaking wet and had her hair unbound. The woman seemed genuinely shocked to not be a giant demon standing over the corpses of her enemies, as she had so many times in the past. Kakuzu looked over to Haiden and nodded, a subtle reminder to not target any vital areas, only a leg or two. Haiden raised the spike high above his head and melodramatically brought it down into his thigh. The blonde woman did not, however, collapse and scream in pain as they had both expected. Kakuzu was the first to realize what had happened, and took it upon himself to explain the strange phenomenon to Haiden, lest they be there all day. You have the blood of the two tails. This is the jinchuriki. Your ritual is now useless unless you can get the girl's blood, stated Haiden calmly. The jinchuriki had gotten over her opponent's self-mutilation and grown her fingernails to dagger-like lengths with an audible gleam. Bullshit! What's the damn difference? Shouted Haiden. Regardless of his whining, the silver-haired Akatsuki member ran at the jinchuriki, slashing like a madman with his scythe. The blades were all blocked by the long claws the jinchuriki had grown, but Haiden would not be rebuffed that easily. He continued swinging wildly, not giving Yujito a moment's rest. She was so focused on not giving any of her blood to the creep that she missed the black shadow that appeared behind him for a split second before attacking. Wind style, pressure damage. Kakuzu declared the name of his attack for his thread creature, since the monster didn't have vocal cords of his own. He could have remained silent, but Kakuzu prided himself on his naming skill, and took every feasible opportunity to declare a new one. The blunt wind smashed into Haiden and Yujito. They were both sent flying, but just like before, Haiden was absolutely fine. He even managed to use the blunt wind as a propellant for his own attack. Yujito landed painfully against one of the semi-standing concrete walls of the building. The impact became even more painful when Haiden landed on top of her. His knees broke several ribs, prompting Yujito to cough blood onto Haiden's face, and his black spike drove itself through her hands and into the wall. Haiden gave into gravity and fell to the ground, but Yujito remained pinned to the wall, hanging by her hands. Haiden drew another ritual circle as quickly as he could, and it was a testament to his familiarity with the circumscribed triangle that he managed it with almost no deviation from the perfect lines of the symbol of Jashin. He licked a bit of the blood off of his face, and his skin took on a deep black hue. White markings appeared as well in shapes reminiscent of a stylized skeleton atop the pitch-black skin. He removed another spike from his tattered and blood-stained Akatsuki cloak and snapped it into its fullest length. Raising his face to the sky, Haiden began praying extremely loudly. Lord Jashin, accept this pittance of pain and suffering, doubled for you glory, as recompense for my transgressions against the commandments of your ways. For today I leave this woman alive for the future goals of your divine mission. The postponement of her death will be repaid by a painful and long death later to appease your great wishes. Please accept the apologies of your most faithful follower and continue to grant your blessings to me that I may keep the commandments and way of Jashin. Amen. With that, Haiden drove the spike through his abdomen, purposely missing every vital organ. Yujito gave one excruciating scream that seemed to last forever, as her blood practically exploded over the wall she was still pinned to. The scream died down to a pitiful whimper before she finally lost consciousness and stopped struggling against the spike that ran through her palms to keep her in place. Kakuzu looked around at the scene, the complete devastation of the surrounding area, the fires that still raged, and the blood that coated almost everything. Any child passing by would have been scarred for life. Kakuzu's gaze finally settled on his partner, who was laying flat on his back as if dead, an image helped by the black metal spike protruding from his stomach. He was mumbling what appeared to be more prayers. Kakuzu had lived for a long time, and had acquired a good deal of patience and respect for religions, even if they all worshipped the wrong thing. He decided to give Haydn some time to finish his stupid ritual to his ridiculous god, but he got fed up after about 30 minutes. It was clear Haydn had no intentions of stopping any time soon, and the jinchuriki was bleeding out while whimpering in pain, having long since regained consciousness. Haydn, it's already been 30 minutes. Aren't you done yet? Asked Kakuzu. Shut up. Don't interfere with the ritual, yelled Haydn, sitting up slightly as the markings faded from his skin. It's bad enough I don't get to kill her now as per the commandments, so the ritual is extra important this time around. It's a pain for me too, you know. Ouch. Haydn mumbled the last part as he pulled the weapon out of his stomach. Kakuzu's witty retort was cut off by the voice of God himself speaking into their minds. We have another one. The two turned to each other and nodded. Kakuzu was the one to send the message to the leader of Akatsuki, claiming the capture of another tailed beast. The usual alert rang through the minds of all members of Akatsuki, before a more privatized message came directed at Haydn and Kakuzu. Setsu will be along to collect your jinchuriki and bring it to the sealing location. Guard it until then. Haydn looked up at Kakuzu expectantly. Kakuzu sighed and reached into his Akatsuki cloak. He pulled out a bundle of black cloth with red clouds and tossed it to Haydn, who quickly changed cloaks into one that wasn't tattered, burnt, and coated in blood. Yet, Chapter 12, Two at once, they're catching up Naruto, said Deidara as Akatsuki sealed both the three tails and the two tails. The three tails was slowly but surely losing mass as its very being was absorbed into the sealing statue, while the jinchuriki of the two tails was having her tenant's chakra sucked out the old-fashioned way. Yeah, we'll need to get back on that, said Naruto. He turned his golden eyes to the Akatsuki's resident spymasters. Is the fox still hiding in the hidden leaf? Sasori's puppet body turned to face the young blonde team. Unless the jinchuriki is out on a mission at the moment, he should still be in the village itself. You can't seriously be considering an attack on the Hidden Leaf village. My pathetic village was one thing, but the Hidden Leaf is on an entirely different level. Ah, you do care about us, said Deidara in a high girlish tone. Trust us on this one, we'll be fine. So you'll be in the land of fire then? Asked Kakuzu gruffly. Unless they've moved the largest of the hidden villages since last I've heard, yes, Kakuzu. We'll be in the land of fire, replied Naruto, tone laden with sarcasm. Hilarious, deadpanned Kakuzu. Haydn and I will be in the area as well, hunting for funds. If you have time, perhaps you'd like to assist us in destroying a temple. It might lure your jinchuriki out of the village proper. We help you get your target, and you help us get ours. I don't see why not. Naruto turned to his partner for confirmation. Deidara, I don't have a problem with it. I get to blow stuff up either way. If their plan doesn't work, I get to turn twice as many places into works of art. Shrugged Deidara. Let's do it. All right then. We'll meet outside the fire temple. And Deidara? Kakuzu turned the Akatsuki's explosives expert. I'm after bounties, so try to leave the bodies recognizable. Deidara grinned, though she knew her face would still be a shadowy blob to the others. No promises. Konan was one to the two females in Akatsuki, and one of the founding members. Not a founding member of the Akatsuki consisting of 10 S-rank missing ninjas, but the previous Akatsuki. Ones who had donned the cloaks knowing what the red clouds stood for and willing to fight for the liberation of the land of rain from Hanzo the Salamander. She had only been a girl, fighting with her friends for peace. Led by Yahiko and powered by Nagato, Akatsuki had almost achieved their goal too. Then Hanzo had double-crossed them. They should have seen it coming, known they couldn't trust him, but the promise of peace had been too tempting. Yahiko and Nagato, her best friends, had paid for that temptation with their lives. That moment of her life was important for one other reason. It was the moment Pain was born. Rising from the bodies of her two friends, Pain had all of their power and convictions, yet none of their mercy. The god incarnate would stop at nothing to see the dream of world peace realized, even if he had destroyed nations to do so. The blue-haired little girl from back then had died too, in a way. Wise to the ways of the world, Konan had devoted her existence to helping what was left of her friends accomplish their goals. And as the only team of Akatsuki to not capture one of their assigned tailed beasts, Konan and Pain were not helping to accomplish the goals of the organization. Pain was too busy ruling over the village hidden in the rain, Akatsuki's base of operations after the death of Hanzo the Salamander, to be bothered with hunting for the six tails. So Konan took it upon herself to find the beast. Actually, she took it upon Sasori and Zetsu to find the beast, but she was the one to hunt it down and bring it back. Apparently the Six Tails had been one of the harder-tailed beasts to track down, since its jinchuriki was actually a missing ninja roaming the world to stay one step ahead of the hidden mist. That wasn't to say Sasori and Zetsu had any trouble finding the jinchuriki and keeping tabs on him, but it had been harder than most. Right now, the jinchuriki, one Utakata, was staying at Mount Katsuragi. As one of the few ninja in the world capable of flight, Konan had little trouble reaching the mountaintop fort. Her paper wings allowed her to disregard the no-doubt plethora of traps that littered the plains around Mount Katsuragi with ease. She touched down, legs forming as her wings grew smaller, and walked slowly toward the abode located atop the mountain. "Hold it right there, little missy." Konan looked over her shoulder to see an old man with a sword pointed to her back. "I don't know how you got here, but I'd suggest turning right around and leaving this place if you know what's good for you." Konan's amber eyes closed, and she let out a sigh. She had been hoping to not leave any corpses. She turned to face him, and something shot out of her sleeve too fast to track for all but the highest level ninja. The old man might have been able to see it in his prime, but as he was now, the paper shuriken caught him in between the eye, and he dropped like a sack of rocks. "Tanbi!" Konan turned back to face the mansion fortress at the sound of the young girl's shriek. The young blonde ignored Konan for a moment, and ran past her to the dead man on the ground. "Tanbi! Wake up! You can't be dead. You have to keep protecting me, remember?" Tears welled in her eyes as she continued to shake the old man's corpse. The girl's pleas fell on dead ears though. There was no one to hear her but the Akatsuki member that had just done the deed. Konan readied herself to kill the girl as well, folding another piece of paper in her sleeve with one hand as quickly as only an expert could, and then hardened the material with her chakra until it was as sharp as any steel. The deadly origami flew from her sleeve at the back of the girl's head, but was intercepted halfway by a bubble of all things. The shuriken punctured the bubble, which exploded in a cloud of smoke. When the smoke cleared, the young blonde girl was gone. In her place stood an older man with jet black hair covering his left eye. His blue kimono was open to his waist, displaying a figure that was neither muscular nor scrawny, holding a bamboo tube. In his right hand was a metal bubble blower. "Why are you here?" Despite a glare that positively shot daggers, he took the time to address Konan as if there was still some hope for a peaceful resolution. Konan didn't deign to answer, instead throwing a veritable stream of paper shuriken at the man. In a feat impossible for all but the best ninja, he managed to block every single one with the metal tube in his hand. "You didn't hesitate to kill Tanbi, but there wasn't a single shuriken aimed at a lethal area when you attacked me. I'll ask again, what do you want with me?" Konan looked him dead in the eye as she replied. "I am Akatsuki. We will usher in a new era of peace using the 9-tailed beasts. As Jinchuriki of the 6 tails, we need the tailed beast within you." As if on some unspoken cue, the two S-rank missing ninjas jumped back. Konan loosed another handful of paper shuriken, while Utakata dipped his bubble blower into the bamboo tube at his waist and blew several bubbles. Konan's shuriken were traveling faster, and popped the bubbles, which all exploded in various elements. Some released powerful flames when they burst, others gallons of water. Utakata was back on the offensive immediately, blowing bubbles with much higher velocity, easily capable of breaking bones. Konan was forced back again and again as Utakata slowly advanced. Konan dodged a bubble once more, and her heels almost slipped off the edge of the mountain. Utakata noticed as well, smirking before he dipped his blower in the soapy water once more. This time, a barrage of suds came flying at Konan. The blue-haired woman made one hand seal before falling backwards over the edge. Utakata turned around marveling at how easy it was to defeat a member of Akatsuki. He had never heard of the organization, but they had seemed rather competent. He should have known that it wouldn't be that easy, whipping around as a large shadow obscured the sun. His eyes widened in wonder at what he saw. The woman from before was flying with white wings made of the paper she had been trying to kill him with. Her legs were also conspicuously missing, though give the look of her bottom edge, it seemed she was actually made out of paper and had taken the paper for her wings out off of her bottom half. He supposed it made sense. What use were legs when you could fly? As fast as he had turned, he was still too slow to avoid the attacks that were already heading his way. The large paper spikes dug into his knees, inducing one of the most painful things he had experienced since his master had tried to remove the 6 tails from him. Utakata decided to risk one last warning before he went all out on this paper user. "Hataru! Run!" Hataru, the girl from before, emerged from behind one of the trees on the grassy mountaintop. "No! I won't leave you!" Konan thought it was a foolish sentiment, though she understood where it was coming from. Yudakata didn't care for sentiment at the moment though. "I'll be fine, but I can't go all out if you're here." The pain in his shattered kneecaps was threatening to send him into unconsciousness. "If you ever thought of me as your master, run!" It was all he could do. The noxious red chakra of the 6 tails flowed out of him, covering him like a second skin. 6 red tails swung lazily behind him as his reason became clouded by an unstoppable rage. Yudakata gave a fearsome roar, and his tails shot out at the flying paper user as Hataru ran towards the spiral staircase to the foot of the mountain. Konan dodged the first 5, but the 6th hit her square in the chest. Yudakata grinned victoriously, and then roared again when Konan burst into a flurry of paper. The pages flew at him like a swarm of bats, obscuring his vision. He swung his arms like a child trying to swat a fly, and the papers seemed to thin out. He grinned once more, but wouldn't let his guard down like before. It was due to his caution that he managed to jump away from the exploding notes on the ground before they exploded. While he was in midair, another spear of paper came out of nowhere to impale his right arm, pinning it to the side of his body. Yudakata hit the ground hard, and his dulled mind decided to rest for a second and let the power of his tailed beast heal his wounds. This turned out to be the opening Kona was looking for, as her pages flew in and wrapped him like a present, sticking to his skin until there wasn't an inch of skin showing. Yudakata was the jinchuriki of the 6 tails though, and he wouldn't be held back by such a measly barrier. Underneath the paper body bag, the red chakra turned a shade of light purple. The paper began to hiss and dissolved as Konan watched from above. Yudakata broke out with one final burst of acidic chakra and stared back at Konan. He opened his mouth and shot out a jet of acid. Konan exploded into a tornado of paper as the concentrated jet of acid shot harmlessly through her. Obscured as she was by the paper, Konan reformed the upper half of her body higher up in the tornado of paper and gathered a smaller cylinder of pages in her right hand. Yudakata noticed her as the amount of paper lessened to reveal a Konan holding the paper cylinder, which compressed to form a large spear. The weapon was hurled at Yudakata, who tried to dodge the obvious attack. He closed his mouth to stop the flow of acid and jumped backwards, right into one of Konan's paper clones. The paper construct slammed its palms into Yudakata's chest and exploded. The blast launched the 6 tails jinchuriki backwards, right into the path of Konan's weapon. Yudakata still managed to avoid the weapon by using one of his 6 chakra tails to throw himself to the side once more. The spear still stabbed his tail, and went through it a good ways into the ground. Yudakata roared in pain, and his screams only increased in volume when the explosive tags littered throughout the paper spear exploded. Konan looked on expressionless throughout it all. Another wave of her hand, and the paper fluttering around her flew at the screaming jinchuriki, and covered him in paper. The acid would have no doubt eaten through the paper as it had before, but Konan didn't give Yudakata the precious seconds for the acid to do its work. Each tag-sized sheet of paper that coated Yudakata was in fact an explosive tag. Individually they were devastating weapons capable of taking out even the most experienced ninja. En masse, Konan could turn them into bombs to rival Daidaras. The tags exploded, and Yudakata was launched by the explosion off the edge of the cliff. His tails struggled to find purchase on the cliff face, but simply couldn't dig in deep enough, fast enough to stop his descent. He landed heavily in a cloud of debris at the bottom, a fall that would have no doubt killed most ninja. But jinchuriki were not most ninja, and Konan was not going to fail pain due to some unconfirmed sense of victory. To ensure that the jinchuriki was down for the count, several dozen more explosive tags flew down into the dust cloud and added to the commotion. When the smoke cleared, Yudakata lay broken and bleeding, no demonic chakra in sight. Konan allowed herself a small indulgent grin. She took little pleasure in killing, unlike some members of Akatsuki, but she was good at it. And no matter how perverse the profession, there was some joy in excellence. Her paper coated the jinchuriki, this time for transport rather than asphyxiation, leaving a small opening for air around the mouth. It floated up to the femme fatale, and they headed out into the night. Naruto and Deidara met Kakuzu and Haiden trekking through the mountains towards the fire temple. The two immortals were almost missed in the mist by the 2 youngest members of Akatsuki as they flew by, a fact that Deidara didn't let them forget easily. "Man, I almost didn't see you, yeah?" mocked Deidara. "You looked like ants from way up there." As we flew overhead. "Several times faster than you. I can't believe you guys still walk everywhere, yeah?" "I fly, Konan flies, the Kazekage could fly, hell, even that ancient excuse for Itsutsuki can fly. I am well aware of the fact that we walk everywhere. Contrary to what you seem to think, flight is not so easily obtained," replied Kakuzu. Naruto often styled himself as the more mature one in their team, but even he enjoyed heckling his seniors from time to time. It is for us. Maybe if you asked nicely, Deidara could make you a bird, for a fee. I do not waste money, said Kakuzu immediately. Haiden looked to be on the verge of complaining about the long walks and demand that Kakuzu pay for airfare, but the conversation was moving a tad too fast for him. Besides, as long as Jashin got his tribute at the end of the day, who cared how long it took to get there? But walking sure wastes time, said Deidara in mocking lament, and time is money. Naruto finished his partner's sentence, looking at the two immortals with a small smirk. Kakuzu seemed genuinely torn by the logic for a moment, before steeling himself against further conflicting emotions. I will not give a Rio when I could save one instead. We'll walk. Kakuzu, I don't want to walk all the way there, whined Haiden. Just pay the damn fee. It'll be so much faster. Now Haiden, scolded Naruto mockingly. Kakuzu's made his decision for the both of you. You've made your bed, and now you have to sleep in it. Naruto joined Deidara on her owl, a form he had insisted on, and the two blondes rose farther away. See you at the top. As it turned out, it would be several hours before Kakuzu and Haiden joined the two at the fire temple. Well, look who deigned to grace us with their presence, greeted Deidara mockingly. Let's just get this over with, grumbled Kakuzu. He and Naruto stood side by side in front of the large iron doors that barred the entrance to the fire temple. Flanked on either side by two imposing statues, the seal-reinforced doors looked as strong as they were. Kakuzu most likely couldn't see it as his right fist took on a dark brown hue and solidified to become harder than diamonds, but Naruto could see the chakra flowing through the complex seal as clear as day. Not that those would stop them. Kakuzu and Naruto both pulled their right hands back, balled into fists, and swung at the iron doors. Despite the seals designed to make them impregnable, the doors went flying off their hinges and into the temple's courtyard. It was clear that no one inside had been expecting the doors to suddenly soar inwards, and nobody opposed the four Akatsuki members as they slowly walked in. Deidara, never one for guile and subtlety, broke the awkward silence. We're looking for someone named Chikariku? Deidara turned to Kakuzu, who simply showed her his bingo book in exasperation. Chirika. We're looking for Chiriku. If he come out now, well, we'll still level the place and kill everyone to send a message, but we'll feel worse about it. The monks were mostly pacifists, and though they trained in taijutsu and some even dabbled in ninjutsu, none of them could hold a candle to an actual ninja. Their terror was lessened as they moved out of the way to make room for a monk who carried himself like he was in charge. He was bald, as were all the monks, either old nor young, and wore the traditional robes that all the monks of the fire temple wore. All in all, he was entirely unremarkable, save for two things. The first was the absolute fury in his eyes directed to the Akatsuki members, and the second was the cloth wrapped around his waist with the kanji for fire emblazoned upon it. He might be a monk now, but this was unmistakably Chiriku, former member of the 12 Guardian Ninja. What business do you have in this temple? He asked, though it was obvious he didn't really care. These two are here for your bounty, but my partner and I are here to stir up trouble and bring the hidden leaf into things. If you want to send a messenger now, go ahead. I won't guarantee that there will be anyone left alive after this to carry a message for help, offered Naruto. Haiden seemed distressed by the offer to let one of the monks go, but by some act of God he held his tongue. It was an act of Jashin, forcing Haiden to pray in silence before spilling the blood of his foes in the ritual, which he would make especially painful for these pacifist freaks. If you are as evil as you seem, I will accommodate you here and now. I'll kill you to prevent your wicked acts from continuing. During his threats, Chiriku raised his hands into strange stance, one hand in a half-ram's seal and the other with the palm facing the ground. Welcoming approach, thousand-armed murder. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw the golden spirit of Kanon form behind the ninja monk, who stood as still as a statue, glaring at the Akatsuki members. Judging by the expressions of the other three in the group, he was the only one who could. Deciding that their talents would best be served fighting threats they could see, Naruto addressed his allies. I'll handle this guy. You can look for more bounties and cause havoc in the temple. Haiden lowered his necklace and smiled. Now there's an order I can get behind. Kakuzu, how come you never let me cut loose like this? Haiden didn't wait for a response and ran off, chasing some monks into one of the temple's side building. Kakuzu looked at Naruto strangely for a second, but soon forgot when he saw Chikaku, a old bounty, but still worth quite a bit. Deidara looked at Naruto and shrugged as she turned away. If you say so. I'm going to show these guys what real art is. A large clay lizard appeared beside her, and she rode it in a direction that hadn't been taken yet, right past Chiriku into the main temple building. Chiriku's face contorted in anger at their flippant disregard of his declaration to protect the temple, and Naruto saw the angelic goddess behind him mirror the expression, morphing into a red demon. The demon's face was furious, and one of its 1,000 fists shot out at Deidara. Naruto wasn't about to let his partner be blindsided by such an attack, and jumped in between the phantom blow and the mad bomber. His fist met the significantly larger demons, but the power of Sage Mode prevailed again, and the red fist was torn to shreds of chakra by the burst of Sage Chakra. Naruto looked up at Chiriku, who stood once more in front of a golden goddess with a surprised expression on his face, and smirked. "Sorry, but I'm your opponent here." Chiriku was quick to recover, and retorted in kind. "I am Chiriku of the Fire Temple, and I won't lose to the likes of you." Naruto rushed the monk, watching as the jutsu he was attacking become enraged once more. This time, it attacked with more than one fist, and Naruto would have taken a massive blow if he was unable to see the phantom attacks. As it was, he deftly maneuvered around the punches, drawing ever closer to Chiriku himself. Naruto jumped over a fist that materialized particularly close, then took a punch full in the face while in midair. The blow hurt a surprising deal, and Naruto had no doubt that without Sage Mode, it would have likely incapacitated him. As it was, the blow sent him flying back, or it would have, if he had not been intercepted halfway by another fist. The pummeling continued, and the red demon practically juggled him for a short while before launching a particularly strong blow that sent him flying. He would have some bruises in the morning, but not too bad for a supposedly lethal barrage. It was clear the man's jutsu made him superior to even Naruto in close combat. The monk's technique could launch attacks from any direction at any time, making it impossible to predict. Not even the Sharingan would have been able to react in time. So Naruto settled on killing Chiriku at a distance. Sage Art, Inorganic Incarnation. Connected to the earth with Sage Chakra better than any earth chakra, Naruto used his chakra to give life temporarily to the rocks below the Fire Temple. The earth below Chiriku erupted as if it wanted to kill the monk. Taken off guard by the loss of footing, Chiriku reached out with his hands to keep upright. Naruto raised his hands from the ground, removing the life-giving chakra from the earth they stood on, when he saw the golden goddess behind Chiriku fading. His jutsu was clearly tied to that strange stance he had adopted before the fight. Naruto rushed the ninja monk while he was still off balance. To Chiriku's credit, he recovered quickly, just in time to come eye to eye with one of the only practitioners of Sage Mode in the world. Naruto sent a simple jab into the monk's stomach, which the former member of the 12 Guardian Ninja blocked. The hand that caught his punch slowed Naruto's strike down about as much as a wet tissue paper. Chiriku was sent flying across the courtyard, and landed heavily in the dirt. He rose as quickly as he could and attempted to regain his stance to fend off the Akatsuki member, but Naruto wouldn't give him a second. The sage's next punch was enough to end it. Chiriku wasn't sent hurtling through the air by this attack, instead being caught by Naruto's other hand. After all, it wouldn't do to have Kakuzu's bounty go soaring off the mountain. Hayden had stopped caring about Kakuzu's precious money the moment he was out of sight. He might have been the slowest member of Akatsuki, but when compared to people like Itachi and Naruto, he never really stood a chance there. As it was, he was incredibly fast ninja, easily capable of catching up to some monks with minimal ninja training. The slaughter was quick and bloody, resulting in the hallway he had caught up to them and getting an impromptu paint job. The bloodshed didn't last nearly as long as he had intended, and it left him sprinting through the Fire Temple, looking for his next victim. He continued this way for a short while, hunting down monks whenever he saw them. He passed Kakuzu, who had some midget's corpse over his shoulder. Deciding to ignore his partner for the time being, Hayden turned the other way and continued to hunt for tributes to Jashin. After a while longer, it seemed like he had gotten them all, and so went back to the courtyard. Kakuzu was looming ominously above two corpses, probably the two guys with the largest bounties in the area, and Naruto was meditating like he was in some kind of serene glade, not a wrecked temple they had just slaughtered. Deidara was making clay butterflies, which would fly into the air and explode in bright colors. It wasn't a skill used often in combat, but it helped pass the time. "Did we get all the peaceful fuckers?" asked Hayden. Neither he nor Kakuzu was censors, but he had a basic grasp of the skills possessed by other Akatsuki members. He knew enough about the two blondes to realize that if he had missed anyone, Naruto could sense them. Sure enough, the sage opened his eyes and whirled around, kunai flying. A yelp was heard from behind the pillar he had just hit, and Naruto turned to Hayden. "Remember, we need to send a message to the Hidden Leaf." So we prefer scared to dead. We prefer scared to dead, repeated Haydn mockingly as he rolled his eyes. Honestly, I'm not fucking 5. Haydn stalked over to the pillar, where the last monk was no doubt cowering in fear. The idiot had likely been waiting for the Akatsuki members to leave the courtyard to make a run for it and get help. Haydn rounded the corner, side ready to stop any desperate attack by a desperate monk. Instead, he got a sharp kick to the shin. Hopping on one leg from the pain, Haydn looked down to see not the monk he had been expecting, but a terrified little boy, likely a monk in training. He wore a scaled-down version of the monk's garb, and had short brown hair. Regaining his composure and clearing his throat, Haydn put his scythe away, confident that he could beat a child, even if he could die. "Oi, you little shit, we need you for something." It was clear that Haydn's great charisma wouldn't convince him to come willingly towards the 4 people who had just massacred a temple of pacifists. Haydn settled for grabbing his hair and dragging the child, kicking and screaming in horror, out into the courtyard. The other 3 Akatsuki members raised eyebrows at the sight of the young boy, but otherwise remained as intimidating as they were expected to be. Once he drew close enough, Haydn tossed the boy unceremoniously into the midst of the monsters. Naruto was the first to speak, his voice copying Itachi's terrifying monotone perfectly. "Do you know where the Hidden Leaf Village is?" It was all the boy could do to nod, looking on in terror through tear-filled eyes. "Take a message to them, and we'll let you live, yeah?" said Deidara, sounding far more sympathetic than Naruto was, and much kinder than Haydn and Kakuzu were even capable of faking. The boy's eyes showed some trace of hope underneath the mind-numbing fear, and Kakuzu took the opportunity to seal the deal. "If you don't deliver this message telling them what we've done here today, and that we'll be here for 4 days, we will know. And we will find you," he growled, rekindling that terror in the boy. "We have another one." The 4 Akatsuki members froze up in unison at the sound of Pain's voice. They all realized that if the boy ran and found a patrol instead of the village, the hidden leaf could be on them while they sat there like ducks and got killed. Something would have to be done to slow him down a bit. Haydn pulled his scythe off of his back and delivered a painful cut to the boy's right leg, eliciting a shriek of pain. "We can't have you getting there too fast, now can we?" he said, licking the blood off of his red scythe. "Get going, you little shit." Following his advice, the young boy limped out of the temple's broken gates as fast as he could, trailing blood the whole way. "That might have been a tad extreme, don't you think?" said Deidara, a little sympathetic for the boy. "If it weren't for you two, we wouldn't have let him go at all," said Kakuzu, taking a seat on top of a small cushion positioned on the stairs of the temple for the ceiling. It wasn't long before the other 3 followed suit. "True," said Naruto. "Regardless, let's get this ceiling done with." 2 days later, a patrol of ninja found the monk in training, half dead along the roadside. He was immediately brought in for medical treatment, and the moment he could talk, the message was passed on. Content with the knowledge he had done as they had told him, the boy slipped into unconsciousness. Tsunade was immediately alerted to the message, and she convened as many eligible ninja as she could to face down Akatsuki. Teams 7 through 10 were assembled before her, with one of Danzo's rats filling the spot in Team 7 after her apprentices run in with Akatsuki. It still brought tears to Tsunade's eyes that another person she had cared about was taken from her. This time, though, it strengthened her resolve to end Akatsuki, and to that end she had remained as Hokage. For once in her life, the people who had killed her loved ones had a face and a name. Akatsuki. Just the word was enough to make the 4 teams of hardened ninja tense up, with the exception of Team 8, who had never had the misfortune of meeting Akatsuki face to face. The tales of horror told by the other teams, along with Sakura's absence, was enough to convince them of Akatsuki's power. Has attacked the fire temple. Asuma's eyes widened as he took in a sharp intake of air. Tsunade's next word confirmed his fears. Only one person survived, a small boy. The only reason he made it was to send us a message. The Hidden Leaf can't ignore this kind of assault on our lands. I'm sending all of you to take out the Akatsuki members. They'll leave the temple in another 2 days, but they've promised to stay there and meet you in battle until then. It's most likely a trap. We'll need a good plan. Shikamura interrupted Tsunade, usually a bad idea, but he was usually right, so Tsunade let it slide. You're right, of course. But this is one of the only chances we'll ever get to move against Akatsuki. Even if it is on their terms, we'll be able to send reinforcements once they become available. They think they're luring us out, but they don't realize how many leaf ninja they've lured to them. Right now, you are the only ninja present and capable enough to fight Akatsuki until I can send more ninja to back you up. Until then, be careful. We don't want Akatsuki killing any more leaf ninja. Sasuke looked up, Sharingan blazing and lightning chakra crackling down his arm. Don't be surprised if they're all dead when reinforcements arrive. The Uchiha heir turned around then and exited the room, determination incarnate, and face contorted in anger. Well, I guess that wraps that up then, chuckled Kakashi, at least having the decency to look sheepish for his student's behavior. Guess we should get ready as quickly as we can. We'll plan on the way there, okay? The others in the room nodded in agreement, and all exited the room with a single hand seal and a flicker of movement. For better or worse, Akatsuki and the Hidden Leaf would clash once more. Chapter 13. The 4 teams of Leaf Ninja were en route to the Fire Temple when the subject they were all thinking about came up. Having faced Akatsuki the most times out of all of them other than Sora, and being more level-headed about it, since they weren't hunting him, Sasuke was the one to approach the taboo topic. So what strategy do we have to ensure we aren't just handing Sora to them on a silver platter as soon as they kill us all? The question was asked with no sarcasm or ill intent, simply a wish to be prepared, but it effectively killed any joy they were still clinging to. You can't just go asking a question like that, berated Tenten. Learn some tact. Kakashi held up a hand to stop the argument before it could really begin. He's right though. We're supposed to be stalling for reinforcements, but it's just as likely Akatsuki will kill us all quickly and be off with Sora. That's probably their plan, so they likely won't hold back at all. A drawn-out battle actually favors them here, not us. So then what are we supposed to do? Asked Niji. Stand idly by and let them get what they want. I'll try as hard as I can to prevent that from becoming my fate. Even though the question was aimed at Kakashi, it was Shikamaru who answered it. No. We just need to steamroll them with superior numbers on one front while keeping them busy on the others. We'll also need an escape plan for Sora in case things go south, but I doubt he'd be allowed out of his house if we didn't have one on standby. Correct, Shikamaru, replied Kurenai. Us Jonin will take on one of the Akatsuki at a time while you use your teamwork and numbers to keep the other Akatsuki members from interfering. We'll finish our member off as quickly as we can, and move on to help you. As we take them down, we gain more and more momentum. It's far from foolproof, but it's all we have. Kakashi spoke up next to finish the plan. Our escape plan for Sora is actually inspired by our enemy. Naruto isn't the only one who has a summoning contract. Guy, Sasuke, and myself can all reverse summon Sora away from the Fire Temple at a moment's notice. Shikamaru nodded in agreement, and then asked his last question. If the Jonin are working together, and will be working in our teams, then what does the other team do? Niji, who was still listening in, hadn't even known about that, and he was supposed to be a genius. The Hyuga had no doubt it would have occurred to him eventually, but his area of expertise was martial arts, not strategy and tactics. Shikamaru might not have had the most potential in the Hyuga clan in the last century, but he was a genius of a different breed. Asuma was the Jonin to inform them all of the plan this time, falling back into the group as they jumped through the canopy of the Land of Fire's expansive forests. Kakashi's team will be supplementing the others with Ino's support on our team, or added muscle on the other 2 teams. Sai will be with Guy's team, and Sasuke will be helping Kurenai's team. Your main job will be staying alive, and then keeping them away from us. But if you see an opening, you'll need the power to capitalize on it. Shikamaru couldn't have thought of a better plan himself, given the circumstances and the limited time available to them. It had a lot of holes, and could be thrown into chaos by the 2 members of Akatsuki who were still complete mysteries beyond a scythe and bloodlust. But it was the best they could think of, and it depended on their combat ability against Akatsuki. Shikamaru looked around at the Chunin, and Niji, who would be going toe-to-toe with Akatsuki to gauge their confidence. Kiba was confident, and Shino was as calm as ever, but they had never faced Akatsuki before, and Shikamaru was glad Sasuke would be keeping them alive. Hinata wasn't as excited as her teammates, though if she knew what awaited them, she might just crawl up into a ball and never move again. Out of the people who had faced Akatsuki before, Sora seemed eager for a rematch, and Sasuke seemed downright determined to win. And ever since the Land of Honey, and Sasuke's first encounter with Akatsuki, he hadn't been anything close to that when facing Akatsuki. It made Shikamaru wonder just what Sasuke had up his sleeve. XXXXX. Naruto's golden eyes opened and he rose from his position meditating on the stairs of the Fire Temple's courtyard. They're here. And the fools actually brought the jinchuriki straight to us, he said as the other 3 S-rank ninjas gathered around. About fucking time, complained Haiden. On the other hand, I can start praying now. Then I can just go crazy when those leaf fuckers get here. Oh man, I'm a genius! Snapping his fingers at his own brilliance, Haydn pulled out his necklace and began mumbling prayers to Jashin. The words themselves were unintelligible, but the others knew him well enough to guess that it involved blood, death, and pain. Anyone in particular to watch out for? The last thing we need is an idiot being sliced to pieces because we let our guard down, asked Kakuzu, tilting his head towards his partner. Kakashi of the Sharingan is with them, along with the third Hokage's son, the one who was a member of the 12 Guardian Ninja. Itachi's little brother is there too. If there are any others, I don't recognize their chakra, said Naruto. I'll assume you want the big money in recognizable condition? Of course, said Kakuzu, looking away from his comrades at a small dot silhouetted against the sun. Shall I give them a warm welcome? Kakuzu didn't wait for a response from the other Akatsuki members, instead having a white mask with blood-red lips emerge next to his head. The mask's mouth opened wide with an audible cracking sound before a massive wall of flames shot out of the mask at the hawk that was rapidly flying towards them. Fire style. Intelligent hard work. Deidara leaned over to her partner and whispered in his ear. What does that even mean? Naruto simply shrugged. The hawk pulled up short and gave a powerful flap of its wings. Wind style. Raging whirlwind strike. All the members of Akatsuki were knowledgeable about summons, and so weren't surprised when it spoke. Haydn might have been, but he was still deep in prayer. They were slightly confused as to why it would try and counter with the wind jutsu though. Their questions were answered as the figure on top of the hawk stood up and finished his jutsu. Fire style. Grandiose fireball. The winds from the hawk augmented the flames, letting them burn hotter and longer than usual. The two fire jutsu collided, a clash of power against power. The collaboration jutsu that would have likely brushed off most water-style jutsu was just enough to counter Kakuzu's technique, though not much more, a testament to Kakuzu's power. While there was still a thin wall of fire between them, a cloaked figure burst through. He hurtled towards the Akatsuki members at an extreme speed, holding a bar of pure lightning in his right hand. The chakra flow-enhanced sword sliced through Kakuzu's neck and shattered the mask next to it like a hot knife through butter. Kakuzu's two halves fell to the ground as the figure discarded the flaming cloak. Sasuke then raised his left hand and pointed at Haydn with 2 fingers. A spike of lightning chakra shot out and impaled Haydn's heart. As if to make absolutely sure was dead, the tip of the Chidori spear split into countless others of varying lengths. The end result was an Akatsuki member that looked like a pincushion for bolts of lightning. The lightning retreated to Sasuke's hand and he jumped at Deidara with his sword in hand. The element of surprise had been lost though, and Deidara easily dodged onto a clay falcon she had made beforehand. The evasion turned out to be unnecessary though, as Sasuke had to twist around mid-lunge to block a ray of lightning chakra from behind him. The blade absorbed the lightning chakra, as it was designed to, and the lightning jutsu ended. Sasuke's Sharingan widened at sight of the very alive and very not decapitated Akatsuki member standing up before him. Amen. Sasuke's head whipped to face the Akatsuki member he had just impaled several times over, who was whirling his arms as if he were warming up for a morning workout. Man, I get kind of out of it when I'm praying. Naruto, when are those leaf bastards getting here? The silver-haired Akatsuki member paused for a second, before shouting once more. The fuck? Who the fuck stabbed me? Was it you, you little shit? I'd bet it was. I'll fucking murder you. That hurt, you know. Even as surprised as he was, Sasuke easily dodged the slow, predictable swing of Haydn's scythe. He leapt back onto his hawk, which retreated to a safer distance. It wasn't safe enough, since Kakuzu was not pleased at having his head cut off and his fire-style heart destroyed. Water-style, bursting collision. It wasn't the most unique jutsu, but Kakuzu substituted the lack of effects and skill with an ungodly amount of sheer force. The torrent of water bore down on Sasuke, but was stopped dead in its tracks. Earth-style, dividing ramparts. 2 massive walls of stone emerged from the ground around Kakuzu, cutting him off from the other 3 members of Akatsuki. It would be little trouble to convert the walls to rubble, but Kakuzu saw what the Leaf Ninja were trying to do. Not that it would help them. If anything, separating the Akatsuki members just allowed them to not worry about hurting each other. In preparation for actual combat, Kakuzu discarded his Akatsuki cloak. He scowled, not that anyone could see it through his mask, when he saw the 4 ninja in front of him, none of whom he recognized. Which meant they weren't worth anything. The Hyuga's eyes might have been worth something if he wasn't a member of the branch family, which was unlikely, and the others were likely Chunin. This was both good news and bad news. Bad because he wouldn't be making a profit on these brats, but good because he didn't have to leave the bodies in a recognizable condition to collect his money. Earth-style, dividing ramparts. Naruto should have known that the leaf would have this kind of thing up their sleeve. Trying to separate them, honestly. Their plan became even more apparent when he sensed the 4 chakra signatures behind him. He recognized 2 of them from when he had first tried to get his hands on the 9 tails, and while he had yet to have name to put to the 3rd, his chakra was clearly that of an experienced jonin. Kakashi jumped off a perch atop the intersecting walls to join his companions, Sharingan revealed for the world to see. So you're aiming to stall the others and take me out quickly? Without my partner, I'll be vulnerable, and you likely have some kind of chakra suppression seal to counteract my sage mode, yes? Naruto allowed himself to revel in the correctness of his hunch as Kakashi, and the others seemed slightly taken aback at the nonchalant manner in which he dissected their plan. Well, let me tell you why that won't work. Last time we fought, I was using less than 1/3 of my full power. Unless your suppression seal can stop a tailed beast, it won't even faze me. But you don't believe me, do you? Then allow me to show you just how outclassed you are. Naruto flared his chakra, concentrating it until it became visible to the naked eye as a green aura around his body. The ground cracked from the sheer weight of the massive amounts of sage chakra. Kakashi's Sharingan narrowed dangerously, and his determination inspired the other 3 to hold their ground. Seeing his ploy to unnerve his opponents had worked, Naruto allowed his chakra to calm down into the calm river it usually was. Still, it won't stop you from trying, and it won't stop me from killing you. Don't worry, I'll be sure not to maim your bodies too badly. It doesn't matter how potent your chakra is. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the green-clad jonin that had spoken and pointed at him, rather dramatically. You cannot prevail against us, and it makes me sad to tell you why. Sure enough, the black-haired man had rivers of tears rolling down his cheeks. If he wasn't preparing to kill them, Naruto would have found the sight hilarious. You have lost your springtime of youth. The words were said like Naruto was being accused of a crime worse than murder. Fortunately, the other 3 leaf ninja didn't seem to share their comrade's sentiments. What? Naruto honestly couldn't contain his curiosity, and he was sure he would regret it. Your springtime of youth. To see a young man such as yourself committing such detestable acts at a tender age without remorse. Naruto was right, he regretted asking. You should be enjoying these days of uncatchable youth while you can, not killing and stealing. I shall give you one last chance to repent, before I must cut your youth short. These acts may be detestable to you, but they secure my place in the world Akatsuki will create. This system of war and hatred will come into direct conflict with Akatsuki, and I've just chosen the winning side. It's as simple as that, argued Naruto. Now if you're done blubbering over an enemy, can we begin? If you are truly set on this path to destruction, I shall make sure that you cannot be guilty about all of the pain you will cause. First gate, open! The jonin then simply disappeared. Naruto could track him the whole way, but he was taken by surprise by the swiftness of the attack, and so took a solid kick to the bottom of his chin that sent him straight upwards. Wind style, hurricane palm. The copy ninja earned his nickname with yet another jutsu that he most certainly hadn't invented himself. The blast of wind was blunt, but it had a powerful velocity behind it that wasn't possible with sharp wind. Naruto was sent back to Earth almost as fast as he had been sent away from it, and landed with a plume of dust. Demonic illusion, crimson leaf dream. A flurry of red leaves came from seemingly nowhere around Naruto. Kurenai's hand emerged from each one, stabbing at Naruto with over 100 kunai. A brief burst of sage chakra shattered the technique with little difficulty, though the return to the real world had its own problems. Flying swallow, single line. In a burst of speed, Asuma went from one side of a slightly disoriented Naruto to the other, with no apparent effect. Until a second later, when the ground next to the Akatsuki member practically exploded, leaving a crescent-shaped cut of massive size in the ground. The new holes in his Akatsuki cloak were a testament to the effectiveness of the combo by the jonin that would have been grievous overkill on any normal ninja. Unfortunately for them, Naruto was anything but a normal ninja. Sage art hardening. It was a shameless copy of Kakuzu's signature earth style, with some sage chakra for added potency, but it served its purpose. Naruto's skin returned to its normal color as he faced the leaf jonin. Well, that was a bit of a bore. Is it my turn yet? Teammate plus Sasuke faced down the only girl of the Akatsuki group. Or rather, they faced up, since Sasuke was the only one of their group that could fly. Deidara looked as confident as an S-rank ninja deserved to look, and decided to taunt the little brats before killing them mercilessly. You could just leave, I'm a reasonable lady, yeah? She said flippantly, feigning a sudden interest in her fingernails. We're only interested in the jinchuriki. Itachi's little bro has to live though, otherwise I have to answer to a real Uchiha genius. Nothing saying I can't give a good beating though. Deidara leaned forward, offering a mocking smirk to the younger Uchiha, who scowled back. It's been bothering me for a while now. Why does Itachi want me alive? Asked Sasuke from atop his hawk. It isn't that he wants you alive. He wants to be the one to kill you, replied Deidara, unbelieving that her opponents were just giving her time to mold her clay. As for why, your guess is as good as mine. My guess is it has something to do with those eyes of yours, or rather, what they might become. Sasuke's Sharingan narrowed at the obvious reference to Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan. Surprisingly though, it was Shino who broke the tense silence. We should begin combat now. Why, you ask? Because she is clearly stalling for time, presumably to prepare the bombs we've heard about. Deidara leapt off of her bird suddenly, and quickly dashed at Sasuke's hawk. With no time to respond to the surprise attack, Sasuke also departed his mount, dismissing it before its explosive counterpart could kill it. Deidara landed heavily, stood up, and dusted herself off before speaking. Was it that obvious? Despite being found out, Deidara's confident grin never left her face. One thing though. You assume I wasn't already prepared. Deidara's left hand formed a half-rammed seal and the ground beneath Shino erupted. Before he could blink, Shino was wrapped up by a clay centipede that had hidden underground, placed there by Deidara when she had landed. Shino! Damn it! Kiba took a step towards his teammate before deciding against stepping closer to a high-yield explosive. The centipede certainly did explode, but Deidara's keen eyes and Sasuke's Sharingan were able to notice the aburame break apart into thousands of beetles as the bomb went off. Hinata and Kiba were not so lucky as to have the observational skills of an Uchiha or S-rank ninja. Shino! Hinata looked like she was about to burst into tears, and Kiba looked ready to throw reason and planning out the window. I'm alright. Shino's calm monotone came from behind Hinata. Shino had intended to console his teammates and calm them down before they did something to jeopardize their safety. His voice had the opposite effect, however, as Hinata gave a terrified shriek before whirling around to face him. You shouldn't sneak up on people like that, Hinata admonished, though it was likely the softest spoken criticism in history. Deidara was incredulous that, despite the bug boy identifying the need for her to take time preparing each bomb individually, they were still standing around talking. Her hands chewed the clay meticulously, molding her explosive chakra in the correct ways for what she had planned. Teammate looked back to the Akatsuki member when they heard her technique beginning. Explosive clay minions. Unlike her usual artistic sculptures, a shapeless mess of clay was practically vomited out of her hands. The piles of clay began to almost bubble as they rose up and took shape. Once they were complete, two people made of clay stood in front of Deidara, connected to her hands by thin cords of her clay. Deidara was less than pleased with the look of her minions, clumsy and ugly. It wasn't perfect, but they would become real art soon enough. Sasuke turned to Team 8 and whispered a quick plan. Kiba and Shino will attack her directly. My lightning can disarm her bombs, and the gentle fist may have a similar effect, so Hinata and I will deal with her little soldiers. She won't be able to use her hands or make any more bombs while she's using those creatures. When she drops them to defend against you guys, Hinata and I will join in. We'll keep her on the defensive. Got it? Kiba and Shino nodded, and even Akamaru gave an affirmative bark. The two ninja, three counting Akamaru, then broke away from their huddle to get into position. I don't know if I can do this. Hinata was the least confident member of the team, and was the only one to voice concerns about her role in the plan. What if I screw up? I might get us all killed. She would have no doubt continued hypothesizing worse and worse scenarios that could arise from her shortcomings if Sasuke hadn't stood up to face the clay creations that were lumbering towards them and placed his hand on her shoulder. You are the heiress to the proud Hyuga clan. You can do this, and you will do this, or we may as well give them Sora and go home. Hinata's white eyes widened for a moment, before the veins round her eyes became extremely pronounced. She nodded and faced the threat, sinking into one of the gentle fist's more offensive stances. The clay's monsters were on them then, and they moved with a speed and grace one would expect of their clumsy appearance and bumbling gait. Sasuke easily ducked under a pathetic attempt at a swing, and swiped at the thing with his lightning-enhanced sword. Anyone else would have missed it, but the Sharingan noticed the Chidori sword miss. Sasuke saw in slow motion the clay separate as the blade passed harmlessly between the two halves. The two hunks of clay landed on the ground with a thud, and Sasuke jumped back to avoid a potential explosion after his lightning chakra had disarmed the bombs. The two pieces of clay didn't explode though, instead rising up to form two clay minions, each looking more defined and streamlined. Sure enough, when they attacked Sasuke again, the two creatures moved more fluidly and with more speed than their larger counterpart. Hinata! Don't cut them in half. They only multiply. Sasuke shouted a warning to Hinata, who had apparently already found out the hard way. The gentle fist wasn't one of the best styles in the world through sheer luck though, and Hinata was easily avoiding even two opponents at once, even delivering small jabs at the clay. The counterattacks did little more than slow the creatures down for a second, though Hinata was still handling herself incredibly well. Far better than Sasuke, whose style relied on lightning chakra to obliterate his opponents before they could even counterattack at all. His Sharingan luckily compensated for his lack of defensive skill, predicting each blow before it happened and letting him dodge with his superior speed. Realizing that he had to do something to short out these bombs, Sasuke unleashed another jutsu he had derived from one of his favorites. Chidori Stream. It was far more chakra-intensive to channel lightning chakra through the air, and it was almost impossible to do it through an opponent's wind style. Still, having nothing to dodge but the air itself made the Chidori Stream near impossible to dodge. Sure enough, the clay minions around Sasuke were nailed by the lightning, and fell to the ground, little more than ugly statues, until a moment later, when they got up as if nothing had happened. Sasuke's Sharingan had noticed what had happened, and while he dodged the stiff attacks from the clay creations, he took a moment to dissect what he had observed. The lightning chakra had clearly had an effect, the same effect that disarmed all of Deidara's other bombs and made them useless lumps of clay. The Chidori Stream had nailed the creatures and rendered the explosive chakra within them inert. The Sharingan had observed it all, and it also saw the replacement chakra rush down the cords of clay connecting them to Deidara to refuel the bombs. So that was how they had escaped the Chidori Stream. The effects of the lightning chakra had worn off almost entirely as the clay lost the electrical charge it had gained. Sasuke had to devote more attention to avoiding the attacks of the clay beasts, but he and Hinata didn't have to hold out much longer. Yahoo! Fang over Fang! Kiba and Akamaru swept in from the sides, both whirling at high speed to create miniature tornadoes of teeth and claws that could drill through almost anything. The attack hit Deidara, whose hand-mouth spit down to sever the cords of clay as her hands came up as if to catch the attacks. The Fang over Fang landed in a large explosion of dust and debris. Sasuke's Sharingan hadn't seen anything strange before the two mutts hit, but Hinata's Byakugan saw through the cloud of dust like it wasn't even there. She sprinted forward and Sasuke ran after her. The dust settled and the Sharingan instantly saw what made Hinata gasp in concern. The Fang over Fang hadn't created the dust, but rather Deidara's bombs that had impacted the Inuzuka and his dog. The two were lying injured to either side of the Akatsuki member, who jumped back to get some distance from the Hyuga that was quickly approaching. S-rank or not, no one who wasn't mentally challenged a Hyuga at close combat. While Deidara was still in the air, Shino struck. Or rather, his insects did. Deidara passed through the cloud of beetles and landed on the ground covered in the bugs. Gah! Get these stupid bugs off! Yelled Deidara, swatting at her skin to try and get the parasites off of her body. My insects are draining your chakra as we speak, Shino said from behind Sasuke. Sasuke whirled around, concerned that Shino had somehow snuck up on him. Why, you ask? Because they have been carefully bred by the Aburame clan for generations to do so. This won't last much longer. The insects were the thing that didn't last long though. The beetles could only handle so much of Deidara's chakra, which was naturally explosive, before they succumbed to the nature of what they were eating. Ah! Shit! That hurts. On the upside, the beetle's self-destruction seemed to be doing Deidara a little bit of damage per beetle. Shino on the other hand didn't care, and quickly withdrew his beetles to prevent the loss of his entire hive. Once the bugs returned to their master, Deidara was jumped up onto a newly created bird and retreated to a safe distance with a few new scorch marks all over her body. Trying to blow me up. Well, fuck you! Deidara tossed her other handful of clay, which took the form of, ironically, a swarm of beetles. Chidori Senban. Sasuke waved a hand of lightning, and a multitude of small slivers of lightning chakra flew out to impale most of the clay insects. Several made it through though, and the leaf ninja were forced to dodge the bombs. Hinata gave a sharp gasp and looked up at Deidara out of instinct, even though the Byakugan let her see the artist from virtually any angle. Sasuke followed her gaze, and even the less chakra-sensitive Sharingan could see the mass of chakra gathering between the Akatsuki members' hands. I can't use C4 or C0 with my allies here, and C2 is too good for you. So see how you like my C3. Deidara's hands parted to reveal a small butterfly. The creature unassumingly fluttered down towards the leaf ninja, but 2 of the 4 could sense the terrifying amounts of chakra inside it. They tried to back off, grabbing Kiba and retreating as far as they could before it exploded. They didn't have long. C3, Kakuzu was rather miffed that he didn't get any of the big money jonin, or even the Uchiha who had taken his fire-style heart. He even would have settled for the unsealed Byakugan that were against Deidara. Those would have fetched a pretty penny. Instead he was stuck fighting 4 little brats that weren't even a fifth of his age. You've made a grave mistake in challenging me. I have more experience than you'll ever have combined. The Hyuga with the sealed Byakugan sank low into the stance of the gentle fist. You've made a mistake as well. His comrades didn't seem to be concerned with defending themselves, apparent confident in the Hyuga's abilities. You've entered my realm of divination. Kakuzu had heard that line before. Difficult to have not, given how long he had been alive. But he had never seen it used by a member of the branch family. 2 palms. Niji slid across the ground at great speed, tapping Kakuzu on the shoulder and hips simultaneously. 4 palms. He hit Kakuzu 2 more times, sealing 2 more chakra points. 8 palms. Another 4 blows doubled the number of palms. 16 palms. A flurry of blows faster than the others landed another 8 hits on the Akatsuki member. 32 palms. Niji's hands were moving faster than most ninja could at this point, and most would have to take his word that he hit Kakuzu another 16 times. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. A rain of palms fell on Kakuzu, apparently 32 of them, making a grand total of 64 chakra lace taps to decimate an opponent's chakra system. But Kakuzu was an Akatsuki member, and Akatsuki members were not to be underestimated. Niji knew this and launched the final step of his own technique. 8 trigrams, 128 palms. Kakuzu's eyes widened at the attack name, and Niji launched into a series of 64 attacks faster than all but the most specialized taijutsu experts could see without aid of a bloodline like the Sharingan. The last 2 palm strikes were delivered at the same time, and had even more chakra behind them to put the final nail in the coffin. The technique was overkill by anyone's definition, so Niji was surprised when Kakuzu put a hand on his right wrist. If you're done trying to poke me to death, can we get on with this? The Hyuga genius's Byakugan widened as Kakuzu broke his wrist with contempt, and he screamed in pain. It was his teammates who came to his rescue, Lee kicking Kakuzu in the side with a massive power only he and Guy likely had. A second kick broke his grip on Niji, who began to rub his shattered hand, and while it didn't seem to do much to damage the Akatsuki member, but not even Kakuzu could ignore such raw strength, he was sent skidding to the side several meters. Kakuzu was a tad surprised by the snakes that appeared to bind him, pinning his arms to his sides. Super beast imitation. Sai watched from above on a stylized hawk. Upon a closer look, the snakes wrapped around him appeared to be made of ink and paper. He tried to break out of them, but they were surprisingly resilient, only giving a tiny bit. Then Kakuzu looked up when the sun seemed to disappear, leaving him in a large shadow. Ninja tools, giant iron lump. As the technique's name insinuated, the shadow was indeed caused by a massive ball of metal above Kakuzu's head that was somehow being brought down by the girl of the team via an equally large chain. The iron ball landed squarely on Kakuzu, then shattered the ground beneath it. Tenten smirked for a moment, before the giant ball moved. It rose several feet into the air, revealing Kakuzu, who tossed it to the side. It's getting irritating to deal with all of you at once. I think I'll stop holding back. Kakuzu discarded his Akatsuki cloak in one fluid motion, revealing the body beneath. His wore a strange backless shirt, and his head remained covered. But on his exposed back, from masks, one shattered, sat among a web of stitches. Kakuzu's entire body appeared to be stitched back together multiple times, like some kind of demented ragdoll. Now let's even the ga. Kakuzu was unceremoniously cut off, Niji planting his good hand squarely on one of the masks. The Akatsuki member gave a start as mask shattered, and the open hole where it had been quickly stitched itself shut. My Byakugan sees all. Even your weak spots. You've been hardening your skin to negate the gentle fist, but these masks aren't nearly as reinforced, and there's a large amount of chakra behind each. You're fated to lose against these eyes. Niji spoke calmly, both to brag a bit and inform his comrades of his discovery. Now let's end this. Niji's left hand was brought back again to strike at one of the 2 remaining masks. He was taken by surprise when the 2 masks shot out of the Akatsuki member's back, followed by a mass of threads. The holes they had occupied closed rapidly, and Kakuzu's skin became noticeably darker. Niji's Byakugan noticed the threads and masks that had stunned him a bit as they passed take on the forms of demented creatures. One was bipedal, and the mask had a large yellow nose. The other sat on all fours, carrying itself like an alligator, and had blue markings on the cheeks. Water style, contained shockwave. The alligator's mouth opened wide and spewed out a wide wave of water. Niji tried to dodge, but the technique's scale was simply too large, and he was caught up in it. Lightning style, false darkness. The other mask opened its mouth and loosed a blast of electricity, which flowed along the water to Niji. Niji was a jonin of the hidden leaf, and wouldn't fall so easily though. Heavenly rotation. The impenetrable defense of the Hyuga clan whirled to life around the only branch family member to grasp its secrets, and the combination of water and lightning passed harmlessly on either side of him. The rotation slowed as Kakuzu's techniques died down. Niji smirked, glad that he had somehow survived, and hopeful for the future of this fight. Water style, piercing drill. Niji's white eyes widened in shock as the high-pressure jet of water impaled him through the chest, emerging from the other side stained red with his blood. Kakuzu stood up, and his two thread creatures moved up behind him on either side as Niji hit the ground, motionless. Damn. I was hoping to miss his heart, and replace the one he took from me. Oh well. Kakuzu turned to face the three other. Tenten had tears welling up in her eyes, and Lee seemed absolutely furious. Sai was the only one who seemed relatively unperturbed. 3-on-3 are much better odds. XXXXX, I have to warn you kiddos, I'm stronger than I look, said Haydn menacingly. The tension could be cut with a knife. Now get ready to fucking die. Haydn whipped his scythe up and threw it, using the cable connected to its hilt to manipulate it from afar in unpredictable patterns to create even a tiny wound, or he would have, if Sasuke's earlier attack hadn't cut the cable in over a dozen places. As it happened, the scythe flew about 10 feet before sticking in the ground well short of its target, no longer connected to Haydn. Well, this is just fucking embarrassing. Hold on a minute. Haydn went to retrieve his scythe, but Team 10 weren't about to let him just do as he pleased. Shadow possession success. Haydn stopped moving, staring in surprise at the shadow that connected his usual shadow to Shikamaru's, presumably holding him in place as well. Sora, now! The blue-haired jinchuriki ran forward, claws radiating wind chakra. One slice was enough to sever Haydn's head cleanly from his body, which fell to the ground lifeless. Just like that, Team 10 had killed the first member of Akatsuki. Oh. Or not. That fucking hurt. Kakuzu. Get my body, I need to kill these bastards. Kakuzu. Haydn's severed head was still swearing as loudly as before, glaring at the boy who had chopped off his head. Team 10 had prepared as best they could, but nothing had prepared them for a man who simply couldn't be killed. Fuck it. I don't need him. Go on body, kill them all. Get them. Haydn continued shouting things to this effect, willing his body to get up and murder them all in increasingly sadistic and bloody ways. Team 10 stayed wary of the headless body, just in case it sis get up and start attacking them, but it became apparent that without a head, Haydn's body was as useless as any other headless body. Shikamaru was the first to recover from the shock of Haydn not being dead. He might be alive, but I suppose he can't do anything but swear at us like that. A sudden explosion of debris from the wall saw Haydn joined by a tall creature made entirely of black threads that had burst through the wall in a flash of lightning. It enveloped Haydn's body, and a thread shot out to impale the silver-haired man's severed head. The thread retracted, much to Haydn's protest, until it too was absorbed into the mass of black. Team 10 and Ino tried to stop the thing, but whenever they got close, it fired off small bolts of lightning. After a few moments, the creature left as inexplicably as it had come, leaving Haydn with his head firmly attached to his neck by a new row of stitches. Haydn bent over to grab his scythe and raised it high. Jashin, you won't regret giving me a second chance to prove my devotion to you. I'll offer you these whelps as tribute to satisfy your undying thirst for life, if even for but a moment. Shikamaru's shadow struck out once more, but Haydn was ready this time, and deftly avoided it. The shadow continued to snake around, lifting off the ground entirely in some places to try and catch the Akatsuki member, but he was always one step ahead. As long as I keep one eye on your shadow, I won't be getting caught in the same trick twice, yelled Haydn as the shadow missed him again. I think I'll slit your throats, and then hang you upside down from this wall. That'll let all the blood drain out. It'll be like a mural in Jashin's honor. Haydn leapt off the wall he was running up, leaping over the shadow below him. It tried to backtrack fast enough to catch the scythe-wielding crazy person, but it was simply too slow. Choji took it upon himself to defend his exhausted friend from Haiden. Expansion technique, arms. Choji's arms grew to gargantuan sizes, catching the easily telegraphed overhead swing of the scythe. One doesn't catch a weapon with that many blades and come away unscathed though, but it was only a small scratch really, hardly bigger than a paper cut. It still made Choji wince a little, and Haiden jumped back with a crazed look on his face. Shikamaru's shadow returned to him, and he began to gasp for air from the exertion of using his family technique for so long continuously. Ino knelt next to him, her hands enveloped in a green light to restore his chakra. Haiden landed in the blood from earlier, from both his lightning-style impalement and his decapitation minutes earlier. His feet moved in an intricate dance to form a bloody copy of his necklace's symbol large enough to stand in. Team 10 took the opportunity to let Shikamaru catch his breath, happy to let Haiden waste more time with his rituals if it meant they could be better prepared for his next attack. The symbol finished, Haiden raised his side slowly to his lips, giving the part that had cut Choji's hands a slow kiss. "O Jashin, I initiate the ritual of your power with a kiss of death. I pray that you would give me your blessing to kill those who oppose you in a manner pleasing to you," prayed Haiden as his skin turned from a pale white to pitch black, save for the stylized white skeleton that covered his body. He lowered his head to Team 10, continuing his prayer, but obviously addressing them now. "And I'll start by killing the fat ass. He's bound to be full of gallons of blood, you sick bastard!" screamed Ino, throwing a kunai from her hand at the Akatsuki member. She was hoping he'd believe her to be emotionally compromised for real and dodge the knife. Getting caught by Shikamaru's shadow once again though, if he didn't, the explosive tag around the handle would certainly slow him down. The knife impacted him squarely in the right thigh, but the scream of pain came from beside her instead. Ino looked to the side to see Choji gripping his right thigh in the exact spot the kunai had hit Haiden. She was too shocked to move for a minute, but quickly recovered and began to heal the inexplicable wound in Choji's leg, until she heard the explosion of her kunai, and Choji's scream came once more as his wound somehow got much worse. She turned to the sound of Haiden's voice taunting her. "Do you get it yet? Jashin's blessing is a curse on his enemies and followers alike. Any wound inflicted to one is reflected onto the other, but only those who have Jashin's favor live through it. I can't be killed as long as I serve Jashin faithfully. And Jashin demands sacrifices, like your tubby little friend." Haiden pulled out a collapsible spike from his Akatsuki cloak, and raised it dramatically above his head. "I have to kill the rest of you too, so I'll end him quickly." Ino's light blue eyes widened in horror as she realized what Haiden planned to do. Shikamaru's shadow rushed out, but it was too late. The black spike came out of Haiden's back stained red, and Choji collapsed in a heap, gripping his chest. Fuck, that felt good. The ultimate pain, experienced together, that's what Jashin is all about, you know? "So who's next, Kakuzu? Get my body, I need to kill these bastards." "Kakuzu." Kakuzu sighed as he heard his partner's incessant yells over the walls. The lightning beast turned around and blasted a section of the wall apart and flew through. Kakuzu sighed in exasperation. "I swear that moron would lose his own head if it wasn't attached to his neck." "Oh well, 2 on 3 is good enough." Tears fell from Tenten's face as she looked on at Niji's corpse in horror, but they were nothing compared to the river of tears that were pouring down Lee's face. The water mask launched into action, levitating up to Sai's level and launching a ball of condensed water at the artist. Sai sent a small flock of bird to intercept, but the water practically ignored the ink creations like they weren't even there. "You are most unyouthful," shouted Lee as if it were the worst insult he could think of. "To take another's youth like that. I'll never forgive you." "Sixth gate, open." Lee's skin turned dark red, and veins along his face became extremely pronounced with all the extra chakra flowing through them. The ground below him buckled as he took off. Before Kakuzu could blink, a fist connected with his chest, and even through his earth spear technique, Kakuzu felt that hit. Fist followed fist, and before long, the friction caused by Lee's fists moving as fast as they were was enough to create miniature fireballs. Morning Peacock. It wasn't apparent to Kakuzu, but to anyone looking on at the technique, the flames did indeed fan out from the points of impact like the tail of a male peacock. All Kakuzu saw was pain and fire. The Akatsuki member was sent flying into the wall, covered in bruises and burns. If it hadn't have been for his earth style hardening his skin to the strength of diamonds, he would certainly have been dead, or at least out of the fight for good. Lee stood panting like he had just finished running a marathon. His skin returned to human hues. 10-10 now. Tenten nodded, and pulled a large scroll off of her back. She threw the large scroll, the paper trailing behind it in a large arc overhead. The writing on the scroll glowed white for a second before Tenten enacted her revenge for Niji. Manipulated tools, heavenly chain of destruction. The hundreds of weapons sealed into her scroll unsealed themselves then, emerging from the scroll so fast they appeared like white streaks of light. Many missed due to the large area the technique covered, and Sai and Lee were hard-pressed to avoid getting cut to ribbons even though the technique wasn't aimed at them. Kakuzu was battered with assorted weapons, everything from average kunai to Senbon to blades bigger than Samahada. All were repelled by his hardened skin, and the weapons failed spectacularly at killing something as insubstantial as his thread creatures. Then the technique ended with 4 massive chains that could anchor a battleship launching downwards like arrows from the bow. Still coated in the chakra that had sealed them, the chains appeared as force spears of pure light that shot towards Kakuzu with deadly accuracy. The Earth Spear technique did have one drawback: speed. Unable to move quickly, Kakuzu was nailed by the chains, which then fell limply onto the practical floor of weapons. As the chains impacted, Kakuzu could swear he heard his skin crack from the hits. Kakuzu got up groggily, and his thread creature moved to his will. The alligator soared into his back, and the lightning heart returned from patching up Haiden to do the same. Thread fanned out of Kakuzu's back like the tail of a peacock, the 2 masks embedded in the black mass. His arms split at their seams, segmenting to increase their length. His hands shot out to either side to grab Tenten and Lee around their necks, choking them as he dragged them towards him. The leftover blades that littered the ground from Tenten's technique cut their skin as they were pulled across the ground. Tenten had the presence of mind to grab a katana as she was yanked past it, and swing at the threads connecting the hand to Kakuzu. In as much pain as she was, coupled with the bad angle to attack from, her first swings missed by a mile. More thanks to luck than skill, she eventually cut the threads. More immediately re-established the connection, but the moment of weakness in Kakuzu's hand was enough for her to get away. Lee, on the other hand, had no such luck, and was still being pulled along. Halfway to the Akatsuki member though, Sai dropped from the sky, slicing the threads with his tanto on the way past. Lee easily shook off the powerless bonds, and retreated to a safe distance. Well then, I was just going to take your hearts to compensate the losses you've dealt me, but I think I'll get my new hearts elsewhere, said Kakuzu. Sometime during the commotion, he had lost his mask, revealing a mouth halfway stitched shut from both ends and a tongue made of the threads that inhabited his body. Earth style, fish in a barrel. A circular wall rose up around the 3-leaf ninja. They began to sprint up the sides, and Sai flew straight up on an ink hawk, but the wounds that they had suffered from being dragged over a field of swords were taking their toll. Blood came from their wound, and they were both forced to slow their pace. Suddenly Kakuzu appeared at the top, and both of his masks opened their mouths. Combination style, electric typhoon. An electrified wave of water shot out of the masks, falling down on the 2 remaining members of Team 9. 5th gate, open! Lee's skin turned red, and he jumped horizontally off of the wall. He grabbed Tenten and shouldered his way through the wall she was running on. It was a high-level Earth style, and Lee's body had already been pushed past the limit several times. Unable to take any more, he collapsed into blissful unconsciousness. Tenten checked Lee's body to make sure he was alive. She was surprised when a body landed next to them with a heavy thud. She looked over at Sai's body, then at the Akatsuki member who stood atop the hollow tower of stone he had created. The rock sank into the ground, and Kakuzu's threads retreated into his back. In his right hand was a bloody object, and a closer look at Sai discerned the gaping hole in his chest. Kakuzu had mentioned hearts before, and she had known that the thread creatures were extra hearts, but the horror of Kakuzu's technique had never quite set in until now. Your heart will make 5 again, said Kakuzu, as Sai's heart slipped in through a hole that opened up in his wrist. You put up a good fight, but I survived a fight with the first Hokage before I even had this technique. You never stood a chance. Kakuzu's threads emerged from under his ski, writhing like snakes as Kakuzu stepped ever closer to Tenten. The only remaining leaf ninja could only stare in horror, paralyzed as Kakuzu approached. Her hand held a kunai, but she knew it wouldn't do any good, and let it fall to the ground. Lee chose that moment to let out a loud snore, and it actually stopped Kakuzu in his tracks. I only need 1 heart, and his is stronger. If you want to take his place, I'll have yours, but otherwise I'll take his instead. Tenten's first thought was one of relief. She wasn't going to be this monster's next victim. That was quickly followed by a feeling of horror. How could she think of betraying Lee like that? Any more emotion was stopped by Kakuzu's hand connecting with the base of her neck. It didn't kill her, but if she moved in the next week, Kakuzu would take Haiden out for dinner. Too long, girl? His thread reached over her and brought the green-clad Chunin up. Several threads posed over his chest. Eh?